Y'all are all dorks. I'm still getting still pulling stuff up, but I just saw you two arguing in the chat and I had to step in. Peekaboo. Hi everybody. Hi Medic and Ryza. It is friendly banter and that's precious. So, I'm especially giggly and giddy today. How ho I Ryza. But I actually so I fixed my stuff for affiliate. I was actually just now getting that done. And I will have... Yeah, I know. I know. I'm very excited. Everything went through and everything's complete. So apparently, I looked it up. I'm like, there has to be something I'm doing wrong. I looked up the usual issues that people have with that kind of stuff. Yeah. I am too. I'm ready for emotes. But I figured out why it's fucking around. Apparently, Twitch doesn't like it when you autofill. I have been autofilling the entire time. Apparently, it causes a glitch in like the tax interview thing. If you just autofill it, and it'll like, oh, processing for like 3 days, and then it'll go failed to validate. I'm like, shit. Why are you failing? This is frustrating. It's because I was autofilling the whole time. So, that's something. And that was frustrating. But it immediately went through the moment I just typed everything out. I'm like, that's simultaneously the dumbest thing Twitch has ever made me feel, and the dumbest thing I've ever felt Twitch has been. So we were simultaneously idiots for like 3 weeks. Alright, enjoy your food, Reza. Also, some absolute mad lad actually bought me chocolate covered raisins on Throne. Thank you, Jackleback. I will thank them personally when they get here. But yeah, I want to say by tomorrow I'll have my stuff. Hopefully, that won't make. Fuck. Does that make tomorrow an official affiliate stream? Uh oh. I do have a throne. There was only one thing on it though, and it was chocolate covered raisins. And that's because I was just like, fuck it, chocolate covered raisins are pretty good. I love this music. Okay, but enough dilly dallying, enough gooble gabbling. I'm going to go this way. This way. Hello. Streamlabs, please. Hooah! Boo. Here we are. Now before I go cuckoo on this, I'm going to switch to my no tracking because the eyes, last I checked, are still wonky. So there we go. Now I can look down at my paper. Whoop, you didn't see that. Now I can look down at my paper and oh, peek. Hello, Hora. Guess what? Oh, and Jackleback. I saw your chocolate-covered raisins. Thank you. I was just talking about that. And hello, Hora. Guess who fixed his affiliate tax interview dumb shit? Me. So tomorrow, I guess, is technically an affiliate stream. Oops. Also, it's cold. It's so nice, but my body is also very confused. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you're proud of me. Yeah, I figured out what was the issue. I was autofilling, and apparently Twitch doesn't like that. It glitches the system or something, and it can't validate your information. I'm like, that's stupid, but also I'm stupid. And now me and Twitch are both stupid. Like, that's exactly what happened. It was actually frustrating. But today, little yawn, head empty, gang. Not necessarily head empty, but kinda head empty. Mostly just dumb. Cause I contacted Twitch multiple times, like, guys, I don't know what the fuck you want from me. Yes, I have a little yawn counter, and I have yawned quite a bit. Leon has been very diligent. But, as promised from last week, today I'm going to be going over not really art tutorials. Sorry. Let's see. Let me go find my notes real quick. But today I wanted to do a tutorial. Not necessarily on anything specific, but more about how I go about drawing and what I would teach people in order to get better at drawing. Because I noticed a lot of people are interested in that. Because who doesn't like a good art lesson? Certainly me. I would never pass up the chance to draw art. Or learn how to draw art in a new way or a new technique or whatever. I'm gonna snag up Sai because I still use Sai for some stuff. Mostly for the really old stuff that I no longer have saved to a Clip Studio format. Because yes, I used to use Sai. It was just a really good program. Good lord, everything is old as balls in here. But I do have some old notes that I wrote down a long time ago in here. I want to see if I can find them. And strangely enough, they're not labeled notes because I'm not consistent. Where are you? We can just listen to the beautiful music while I have a silent panic attack trying to find my art notes here. Also, I just realized I have 6 instances of art files called gay in here somewhere. And it all has to do with, oh, hi Himiko! I'm glad you liked it! She was a treat to draw. I loved Andrea. I loved the little spooter. And I'm glad I got the eye right. Because I did realize that little green spot could be an eye. It read like one to me, so I went, does this bitch have 4 eyes? So I wanted to ask you about that. I still can't find my notes. I have way too many folders in here. Or files, rather. Uh-oh. Guess who's gonna wing it? Okay. We'll just wing it, for now. I'm still freaking out of how you drew me. Yeah! I'm glad you really like it. Makes me happy that you like it. I'm very glad you like it. Have a document labeled gay on my computer, and that's one of my D&D character name lists. Nice. Yeah, mine was Pride files. I drew a lot of my OCs holding their respective Pride flags. Like, like, oh, for NPCs, nice. That's even better. But I have a big ass file of like, cause see, here's a handful of my characters, and they're all bi. But I have like 4 or 5 different like sci files just named gay. Gay 1, gay 2, and it's because one of them is for the gay flag, one of them is for the bi flag, and it's just. See, that's fair. The app is kind of restricting when it comes to extra body parts. Yeah. I get that. Also, look at my babies. This isn't another admire my children episode. Although I will make you admire them eventually. But let me make sure the music is turned up just enough for you guys. I hope it's not too loud or too quiet. I want it to be in the backdrop. My beautiful Endwalker music. Admiring the children is a good time. I love admiring all of my babies. All of my children's. Here, let's just go over them real quick, because I love them, and I wanted to show them off. Because see, this was a huge project, by the way. Last year, for Pride Month, every, like, few days, I just sat down, drew all of these guys within the next couple days, and just said, I did it. Alright, time to go to the next flag. Because these are all my gabies. Got my 4 main. These are just the ones that I actively, like, follow a story for. Not, like, all of my OCs. These are just, like... Literally on. Admires. Respectfully. I love them all. These 2 are my big favorite, though. Especially this one. This one's my big favorite, and this one's my big favorite. This one has my whole heart and lives in my head rent-free. Because he is a soft, sweet angel boy. Yeah, he's my gaby. Mommy. And this is... Jacob. There you go, the babies. They're werewolves. They're my little werewolves. And this is just an asshole. And this is a sweet boy. Gotta have at least one asshole in the group. But yeah, for Pride Month, I churned out, like, I want to say 30 characters. Because I was like, I have to draw all of them with their flags. Oops, sorry, Jackoback. But him's name's Jacob, and him's good boy. And we already saw my bi children. That one's another werewolf, because I have problems. That's just a good girl. That's a yandere boy. I'm sorry, I stole your name. You're right. There's only one person in the universe named Jacob, and it's you. I guess. Oops. Hi, Bulva. But yeah, I can't find my notes, so we're just gonna wing it. I am going to show how I went about art, how I stumbled into where I currently am, and what you can do to make the process a lot fucking faster, because let's be real, it takes a long time to figure out not just how to draw, but what the hell to draw to get better at it. Yeah, you can DM me a question. Go for it. You can send me a question. I am here to listen. There you are. Oh, you didn't see much yesterday. Yeah, Sunday was a Leon and Desmond only day. We just spent some time to hang out with each other because we haven't been able to see each other much. So if I do drop off like that, especially during the weekend or like at the after stream on a weekday. It's just me stepping away, unplugging from everything, and just spending some time with my husband, my partner, my love, cause I love him, and we missed each other. Uh oh. Bulba. I want to. I'm going to eventually. I like I said, I want to and I'm going to. When I have the time. Oh, we cute. Thank you. But no, yeah, I just wanted to hang out with him. Yeah. Personal time and just personal time for partners is based. But yeah, what was I? Tutorial. How to do the thing. There we go. How do the thing. I'm going to show you guys how I ended up doing the thing. Now, there are two rules when it comes to drawing art. Rule number one, there are no rules, and rule number two, save often. So I practically spam the save button. If you're drawing traditionally, I guess make sure you don't lose it. Yeah, we doing things. We in here. enough fucking around. We're in here drawing. But yeah, if you're drawing with a tablet, save often. If you're drawing on a piece of paper, just don't lose it. That's the equivalent, I suppose. But the actual tutorial will be starting effective immediately with some basics that I probably would have done a lot better with knowing early on. And that's to do with, I usually don't, I usually do undo on paper. Yeah, it's called the eraser. Actually, I've tried to hit the Control Z multiple times when drawing traditionally because I'm so used to drawing digitally. I've actually put my hand on the table and mimicked the Control Undo thing, and I went, oh, of course that's not gonna work, dumbass, and I flipped the pencil over and I start erasing. It's a grand old time. But yeah, how do the thing? How did I learn to do the thing? Let's straighten that out a little bit. The first thing I had to come to terms with and grips with is that your art is always going to change. My art... Okay, you can rewatch whenever you get back though, Bulba. And then I will pretend you're still here so that I'm talking to you and giving you advice. But I'm gonna go over just a few things I wished I'd have known early. Oh, I'll be on in the background. Yay! So you are gonna be here. Just, you're gonna have to lurk for a bit, and that's okay. I still appreciate you being here. But first thing I always wished I'd have learned. People say practice, and it's like, what? Practice what? What do I practice? The fuck do you mean by practice? Because, yeah, while it's a good methodology and a good, I guess, piece of advice in like, technical terms, it doesn't really help when you just say, oh, how do I get good at art? Well, you just practice every day, or practice every other day. It's like, I mean, thanks for that, but I already figured I was going to be drawing a lot. What do I draw? And that's where I am now cutting out all that dumb shit and vagaries that a lot of artists like to give you, because I don't think they even realize what you need to practice. They're like, I don't fucking know. And I have come to a very fun little conclusion since doing all of this art shenaniganery, is that art is just as technical as it is creative. the creativity and the visual ideas that you want to put down are great and all, but art is technically technical. You have to visualize and figure out in your head, how am I going to put this 3D image that I have in my brain onto a 2D canvas? And that's, to me, what art truly is. Figuring out how to make something 2D look 3D. Because let's face it, we're not making a 3D model here. We're drawing on a 2D flat canvas. How do we make the illusion of 3D? And that is what, for me, a good fundamental of art is. I'm going to start with something simple at first, so we can kind of go into that. 2D in 3D space. Or 3D in a 2D space. So we're going to start with something simple. If you have your paper or your tablet or you just want to watch, go for it. If you want to draw with me, please do. So the first thing I'm going to do with everything is I'm going to start with a little circle. Just a little circle. Now, I personally like to use 3D models to help. 3D models do help. Any kind of reference you can have helps. That's another thing a lot of people like to argue with is that, oh, references are cheating. It's like, it's not. Draw along style. Yeah, basically. I do encourage people to draw along with me. But, yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that references could be considered cheating or tracing or whatever. It's not. Disney used references. They had video footage of voice actresses walking around and moving and like twirling to show physics of skirts, hair, dancing routines. They even mocapped it, which is technically tracing already. Well, not mocap, rotoscoping. Rotoscoping was a technique where 2D artists would take film of an actor or an actress and they would draw over it. And that's how you got those really smooth moving movements. Think Snow White's dance sequence, whenever she's dancing with the 7 dwarves. That was rotoscoped. That's why it looks so good. Or when she's clapping and her head's doing the bob thing. That's rotoscoped. It's why it feels a lot more filled in and fleshed out than the other parts of it. It's because it is. So, there is nothing wrong with taking references. Now, there is something wrong with taking someone else's art and drawing over that, or worse, just uploading it and passing it off as your own. That's not what we're doing here. But for now, we're going to just put that aside and draw a little circle. Current and Rango IRL, then use footage voice acting as a reference. Yeah, see? Reference is always good, and it's how you keep stuff looking more realistic. So, like I said, for now, we're going to draw a little circle. And a little point of advice, when drawing, don't use your wrist. This is what happens when you use your wrist when you draw. Now, when I say use your wrist, I mean, your elbow and your arm isn't really moving, and you're moving your hand and your wrist to primarily draw the circle. That's how you get cramps and carpal tunnel. When drawing, you want to move your whole arm. You want to swing that whole elbow everywhere. So, if you have a piece of paper or an extra layer that you just want to scribble on, do that for me. Just draw a circle, like a series of little circles, and just rotate that elbow, not the wrist. And it'll really warm up those muscles. Because, fun fact, it actually helps to warm up your arm before drawing a bit, just to let your hand and your arm regain that muscle memory, just like exercising. You want to work out that arm. It doesn't help it doesn't help to words. It helps to stretch as well. Just give your arm a little stretch. Give a little rotation. There we go. Gotta be a little loosey-goosey when drawing. So with that quick little, just that quick little shoulder and elbow stretch later, we're going to draw a little circle. Now, you can do it as many times as you want if you're on the tablet. With pen and paper, probably not. Just keep drawing the circle until you find something you like. I like this one. It looks pretty good. On pen and paper, I suggest just practicing it in general, because on tablets it's easy to just hit the undo button. Or on pen and paper, you could just go over it multiple times like this. It's like, oh, that one looks kind of silly. And then you can just go in and lightly touch it up like this. Just kind of be like, okay, that looks better. Just round it out. And then go in and erase whatever looks kooky. And then you'll have your circle. And yeah, you want to be very light when drawing traditionally. You want to touch the paper almost barely until you're just barely seeing the pencil strokes. There we go. Hell's Kitchen while making pizza rolls. Yes, thank you. I'm gonna delete this one though. I'm gonna bring in this one because this one looks pretty good actually. I like this circle. So how do we make this circle read as 3D? Because right now it's just a circle. It's a 2D flat plane. There we go. Yeah, if I were to flip this over, it'd probably just be a straight line. Like here, it's just a straight line. At the end of the day, that's all of these are, is just lines, a 2D plane. So how do we make this look 3D? For me, I find the perspective. For the circle, it's always going to be the very farthest, largest point of the circle, which is the top, the bottom, the right, and the left. These points. Oh, that looks a little jank. Let's fix that. Yeah, these 4 points will always be the circle's farthest points of perspective, basically. It's what we're always going to see as like a straight line if we were to draw a line on this, like, say it's a ball. If we're going to make this a sphere, this and this will always be a straight line when looking at it. So in order to make this look more 3D, we're going to follow that line from here to here. And we're going to kind of try and make a curve on the circle that seems to meet sort of in the middle between this kind of curve and this curve, which is no curve at all. And we're going to kind of make a curve that looks like it belongs to both of them. Hi, kitten. So, something like that. As you can see, it's not nearly as curved out as the edges right here. And it's not so straight. It's somewhere in the middle. This is what is normally called a 3/4 turn for most objects, and we can do that over here as well. Make a little 3/4 turn, and suddenly you have something that looks like it's popping out and more 3D. Now, it's still just a 2D plane on a white digital canvas board, but right now that doesn't matter. We're giving the illusion to the eye that it is a 3D object with these lines, these guidelines that says, hey, this thing is curved. And we can do it here too. We can do these curves. And have it curve somewhere in the middle between straight and this circular part. Like this and like this. Something like that. I'm going to get rid of those for now, though, because it looks a little wonky. But we can do this across the entire circle. As long as you're following that space between these curved lines, like this. See how it's like equally spaced out no matter where you go? And it's not quite as curved here, but it's more curved than this one. Will always give the illusion of a 3D object because we're following the illusion of the ball's curve. And I'm sure we've seen plenty of balls here, but I'm sure we've seen plenty of curved objects in real life. So what's the difference between something that we're drawing? Yums. Onion, it actually is probably a pretty good idea. I am going to delete these, though, just because it's getting a little too crowded, but it's just to give you the idea of what I mean. Curved ball. Because if I get rid of this, it looks even more curved, because it's putting emphasis on these. So now that I have shown you the most basic fucking thing in the whole goddamn world when it comes to art, how do you translate that to, say, a human face? I know, curved objects? Who is she? Oh my god, we'll never know. Now, how do you translate a curved ball through, say, pencil drawing or coloring? Easy, shading. If I want to make this ball not have all those lines on it, and I want it to, say, still look 3D, find wherever that shading is going to go, because most items and everything have shading. God, this music. Here I am crying. I love balls. But following the same perspective of that curve, just follow a curve, and you could probably simulate shading. Something like that. So let's pretend I'm shading him with a pencil, and it suddenly looks a little more like it's sticking out. Because I considered that curve on the ball, and I pulled it in just a bit to where it's not curving as much, and I just darkened it up a little. That's how you do it traditionally. Because it follows the ball's curvature. This all has to do with perspective. But I'm not getting into perspective today. I'm just showing how we can make simple 2D shapes into 3D objects. Same thing with squares. We all know how the square goes. Here's a square. Look at him. Look at this nerd. How do I make it 3D? Considering perspective, we know that the square has 6 sides. We know that it shares a side with itself on the other side here, like this. And we know those sides connect. Look at it. Bam! We got ourselves a little square. And we turned it into a cube. Oh, that's going pretty good, actually. This will be on the test. And if you want to add a bit more depth, let's not shade that. Let's do this. Let's get rid of that. Look at him. Look at this happy little square. Happy little trees. I can't teach you all that stuff because Bob Ross actually teaches you how to, like, traditionally paint. Aw, shit, the test! Yeah, you thought I forgot, didn't you? But if I want to make my square look a bit more detailed or whatever, we could always go in, give him a little bit of shading for the sake of it. I can show later how shading is applied to stuff, but for now, I just want to give him a bit of personality. We can darken one side, and we can slightly shade another, just to have that perspective. Look at him. Happy little square. 2D to a 3D space. This works with every single shape you can ever think of. And if you want to make it 3D, there is a way to make it pop out like that. Now, why the fuck am I going into shapes like this? That's because literally everything in the world is made out of shapes, or a combination of these shapes. For a fun little instance, what is a human head made out of? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? We have this big old dumb dome sitting on top of our skull here. Here's our nope, my tablet's messing up. Here's our little circle just hanging out. Now, don't mind me like being able to draw circles like that on like one. Well, actually, it took me like 4 tries, but that quick hand that I do, that just comes with the practice. That's what you need to be practicing for. The technical ability to have the muscle memory to actually make a circle. And that just comes with exercise and time for the arm. And that just comes from practicing this. Just drawing your arm in a little circle for a few times, because that's all I have to do. And over time, your body will learn that. It's just the nature of muscle memory. But yeah, our head is just a circle on our neck. But it has a few more parts to it, doesn't it? Well, yeah. Well, what else is there? Well, there's obviously our face, but how do we translate that? So the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to pretend the face is looking this way. We're going to have it looking at a 3/4 view again. Remember when I said this line here is a 3/4 view? We're going to do that right now. We don't need to do this. Or if you do need to do that, just to find the middle, you can. But I'm going to find the 3/4 view of this head of this circle. It's going to be about right here. Because it's, like I said, it's equal parts spaced away from each other from the middle. Let's make it a bit better. There we go. And it's not as curved as the straight line here, or it's curvier than the straight line, but it's not as curved as the outer line, because we're following the perspective of the sphere. How do I turn that into a head? Remember, everything is in shapes. And typically the head, like I said, is a circle. And it depends on the head, but today we'll be working with something that's made with a triangle, because this will be the chin. So something like this. The head's a circle with a triangle on top, basically. So we will try to translate to this. Well, how do I make a triangle 3D? It depends on the triangle. Are you trying to make a cone? Let's see. Here's a cone. We all know what an ice cream cone looks like. I say we'll make it a cone. And for those of you unaware, a cone is just, you know, a circle on the bottom that comes to a point at some point. So it's these two pieces thrown together. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you like it. That makes me happy. It's, like I said, this was going to be like basic fundamentals on what I would want to learn to be able to do the thing if I had no prior knowledge. Because some people have asked me to do this who literally have no prior knowledge. And I want to help that. But the chin today is going to be an upside down cone. Now, how do I do that? Well, specifically, it's a cone. For me, it's a cone with a flat piece of paper. That's how I do it. I pretend I've stapled a piece of paper to this ball. Now, remember, perspective and all that. If this ball, say the head, you know, here's my straight line, and then here's the curved lines on it. If we were to apply that to this, I want to say I'd staple the paper to about here. And the line would still curve a little because we're not quite in the middle. We're not looking at it from the very middle yet. It's a little bit below, so of course that line is going to curve just a little bit to follow the curvature of the item. And then I'm going to drop the piece of paper. Now, my piece of paper is just going to be a standard rectangle that I'm going to cut up to look like a rectangle, or a triangle, rather. I'm going to have it hang, and then I'm going to cut off the sides and turn it into a triangle. So here's my piece of paper. Here's the piece of paper stuck to the head right here. And now, since this piece of paper is following the curvature of the circle, the bottom part of it is going to follow it as well. Because when folding a piece of paper, here's my little piece here. If you start folding that and bending it on one end, right here, it's going to bend on the other end. We know how paper works. If you have a piece of paper near you, I love chocolate raisins. If you got a piece of paper near you, you can do it. Pick it up, bend it a bit. Oh look, both ends fold the same way. That's just the nature of that type of item. So I'm going to be using that as an example for my face. My music stopped. Oh, fun. Let's go find more. As much as I love that song and that music, I do love My Legend of Zelda. Let's go listen to some Liggy Zeldies. Beautiful. There we go. Let's scoot that so I can see all of your lovely words. Alright, back to the head. I have a circle, or rather a sphere, with a piece of paper wrapped around it on its halfway point, pretty much. Let's say, here's my staples. Boom. I chucked that shit onto the circle. Now, how do I find the middle part of my paper? Well, obviously, if I'm wrapping it around this ball, the paper's probably out here somewhere. Here's the other end. Wrapped around this ball, like this. This is the back end. But I am drawing it to show you the 3D shape. Already teaching better than any art teachers I had in the past. Well, that's because art teachers are basically grading and teaching on a curriculum, and curriculums are not very good for art. I also took 2 years of art, and the teaching was not very good. All they did was put down items, well, at least my teacher put down items in front of us and said, draw this. And that was pretty much it. And then they went over, history of art more than actual drawing techniques. We were never taught technique. And it was frustrating. No one ever teaches technique. Ugh. Sorry about that. I needed a sippy sippy. Professor Dracula. Yes, it's me. Draculart class. But yeah, here we are. Head. Here's our sphere. I've already told you about the curves. And here's my piece of paper. It's following that curved line, that curved perspective line that I showed you over here. Yeah, art teachers weren't there to teach art. Pretty good art tag. It is, Dracula. I want to use Desmond Dracula art for my art tag one day. But yeah, we have our piece of paper stapled to that perspective line right here. Because see, this is technically the straight line. So here's our perspective. And here's our 3/4 line. This is, I wouldn't call that a 3/4 line. Now, we've got our paper. How do we find the middle? Obviously, if this is 3/4, the middle of the paper is going to be right here on the 3/4 curve. And the rest of the paper is going to be this black, this darker area that we can't see. So, I'm going to erase it, but we are going to visually remember it's there. Actually, I'm going to keep it there. Fuck it. But we're going to remember that that is behind everything. Because we are smart adults, and we have cognition when it comes to object impermanence. Now, how do I translate that to a face? Well, it's obvious. Kind of. Like I said, all faces and all objects have an accumulation of shapes. And for my paper, I'm going to remember that our faces have a jawline. Now, how do I make that jawline? We're going to cut into the paper. I'm going to cut it right here to get that little triangle shape that I showed you over here. We're going to snap it right here. And we have to remember to do the same thing over here. Now remember, this paper is folded, so I'm technically cutting this part of the paper too. But we don't see that part. So now with the paper cut, we can get rid of this. And there is the beginnings of our face shape. Put it on another layer and lower opacity. I could, but I'm already on the same layer, so... there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, look at that. We cut our paper, and now we have that face. And because we're smart adults who know what object permanence is, we know that back here, we will be cutting it as well, because it follows that curve. This is all the same paper. So this certainly does look closer to a face. But how do we get the rest of it? We gotta remember shapes. Let's go look at a face. This music's a little loud though. So let's turn that down just a bit so I can hear my thoughts. I'm gonna Google a face. Just a random picture of a face. Not Facebook. Get out of here. You're not a part of this class, Facebook. Let's see, a good 3/4 face to match what we are doing. Well, that's a pretty face. I'm trying to find one that's stock, though, so I don't, like, show off random people on the internet. Because I don't know how comfortable someone would be on a stranger's... Twitch. This music is very pretty. What is this? Oh, it's Windfish, I think. Come on, faces. Give me a good one. It's just people looking weird. When I googled stock, it gave me the weird shit. Try this instead. Maybe it won't give me dumb stuff. I mean, this kind of works. Maybe. Oh, she's very pretty. Aha! Here we go. This works really well. Alright, we're going to use this as an example. Because like I said, you want references. If you can't think of how to draw the thing, we love weird stock images. Dude, they are weird. People do be looking weird. You right. But in order to make my point here, we're going to grab this little stock photo of this lady. And as you can see, she is turned to the right, just like in the reference picture right here. And we'll always want a good reference. As you can see, I did the jawline here as well. And cut it. And now that we have this, we can start seeing in full bloom where all of the shapes of a face are. Now here we can see, here was the circle that I drew. Which roughly translates to her head. And here was the fourth line that I did here for the 3/4 angle. And then this is where I put the paper. I curved it around the ball just a bit, and I dropped the paper at about here. And it followed that curve on the top and the bottom because of the nature of curves. And then I went cut and cut. And now we can see exactly how I figured out those shapes. And this is basically how you figure out how to draw anything in the frickin' world. You find its shapes that it's made of, and this is how I found the shape of the face. All you really need to do is look at the face and figure out the shapes of it. And figure it out in any shapes that make sense to you. Maybe the paper method doesn't work for you. It might not for some people. Some people I've seen start a head with a rectangle, like this. I've seen some people do this kind of stuff with their heads. The circle thing is common, but not necessarily a hard and fast rule. Whatever shape you need to help get this out, it works. But now that we have the basis down here, and I'm showing you over here, how do we get all these eyes and noses and mouth business? What is all this? Let's grab this up real quick and put it on a calmer layer, a more opaque layer. You have to think about proportion when it comes to the human body, because like any normal walking and breathing creature, we need some semblance of 1, symmetry, and 2, proportion in order to do the walking thing and, you know, the breathing and living thing. Here's the part I struggle with. I can teach you some fun little tricks and tips on how to keep proportions consistent. So for now, with the face, we now know that this is roughly where the chin is going to be. About here. I'm actually going to cut off more of that paper right here, and we're going to erase it, and suddenly we have a chin. Oh my god, what the fuck? What is that? What is that? I wasn't taught that in high school art. Nah, this is that new shit. I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, there we go. Cut it off, there's your chin. So how do we find these eyes and nose business? Well, for me, eyes typically go halfway across the face. Now, not the circle. Realize I didn't say circle. The halfway mark of the circle is right here. Let's change this to a new color. The halfway mark of the circle is about right here. That's not where your eyes are. Your eyes are actually halfway across the face itself. So it will actually be a little bit lower on the circle. I want to say roughly not quite halfway down the circle, but more like 2/3 down the circle instead. Like if we were to chop it up into thirds, like this, we'd see that the eye level is actually like 2/3 down that circle. So here's where our eyes would be, but that doesn't look quite right, does it? Remember, this is a 3D object that we're drawing on a 3D plane, or drawing on a 2D plane, so we need to find that eye level, but we also need to curve it to this face and this paper. Remember, this is all one entity now. This circle paper is now fused together forever in lovely matrimony. Oh, and there's one thing I need to do here. There we go. So we're going to find the eyes. It's about here. And remember, like I said, 3D shape. So the eyes do curve around the face just a bit. Even our mouths do the same thing. They do this slight curving. If we're looking at a mouth from just, you know, a base and point like this, like here's the top lip, here's the bottom, it's like, okay, that's a mouth, cool. But if the face is like turned pretty far, the mouth is technically doing this. Here's the mouth's plane. Here's the lips. Here's the lip line. And the mouth is technically doing this weird little curve because it's following the face. It makes more sense than what I got thought. How did you get taught, Ryza? Hold up. I want to learn that real quick. Uh-oh. What are the eyes about, Ryza? I'm scared to know now. It was more we only ever got taught it quickly, and looking head-on. Ugh, no. Head-on doesn't really teach you sometimes. Slight angles will help you a bit better. You can do head-on, and head-on is good for learning proportions and technical, positioning for faces, but, like, if you're learning stuff in a 3D setting, it's not gonna do anything for you. And that's my goal here. To teach you guys how to actually figure out how to make this look like a thing. But yeah, here's our eye line, which, like I said, goes halfway across the face. So where do I figure out the rest of it? In order to find that out, you can actually just follow your hand across your face, which sounds weird as hell, but I do it sometimes just to kind of remember where everything is. For example, if you follow your lip line, it actually comes to about your jaw. It actually comes to about here. Now, some people have variation, but in a typically proportioned, like commonly proportioned face, the mouth will come to the jaw, right here. But remember, this is a curve. We're curving slightly. So here's where our mouth is going to go. Roughly near that jaw and curved slightly around. Something like that. That's where your mouth is. I know. That's what I mean when I say I'm going to show you guys proportions. Now remember, this isn't, like I said, a hard and fast rule. Some mouths can be higher or lower. It just depends. A little yawn. So, okay, we know where the eyes are. We know where the mouth is. Where the hell's the nose? Well, obviously it's between both of those. As all noses are. As most noses are. And our nose also goes down the middle. Right here. But where do we usually stop it? Typically... typically the nose, for me at least, I find it follows the circle, as weird as that sounds. It stops at about here, because that's where the circle stops on this face. So I usually stop it right here, which is where, like I said, the circle's curve is. You can change it. Like I said, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but it's a good way to keep proportions. Now, how do we get all of these and put them into 3D shapes? Ah, Leon! Leon, my baby. Hello! How'd you sleep? I hope you're learning. This will be on the test. Aw, everyone's giving Leon the love. Alrighty, but yeah, I usually put the nose right here, near that circle. Medic and Ryza, affectionate. Good beans, all of them. So now that we know where the basic spots are, how are we going to pop these out and make them 3D? Well, just like over here, this young lady. See where I showed the eye line? It's right here. Whoops. If I was on the right layer. Here's the eye line, which is that where I laid the paper pretty much. It's that 3/4 down the sphere. Here's where her nose is. As you can see, it's pretty close to where the sphere stops, where I put it here. And then her mouth is roughly in accordance with the jawline. Now, not quite, because like I said, there is variation in mouth shapes and mouth positions. But you can see she is pretty close to how I did it over here. Just because that is the nature of a face's proportions. Our eyes and our mouths will always... Our eyes are always on the halfway point of our head. And our mouth will always be near or around our jawline. I also know that noses are commonly lined up with our ear, the bottom of our ear. So if you want to find out where that ear is, you'll follow the nose. But we're not going to worry about that just yet, because I want to show how to pop these out and make them 3D. Now for the eyes are actually the most complicated, because they are a series of concaveness, convexness. Okay, Ryza, see you in a bit. The eyes have a lot going on, so we need to figure out what they're comprised of. Once again, shapes. What is an eye? What's an eyeball? Guys, I don't want to, like, blow your minds or anything, but an eye is a sphere. I know, crazy. Holy crap, an eye is a what? Yeah, it's a sphere. Isn't that crazy? Holy shit, look at that. That's a sphere right there. Now, how exactly do we make this look like an eye? Because eyes, like I said, are a little more complicated. They've got this convex and concave shit going on. Specifically, an eyeball is not just a sphere. It's actually a sphere with another sphere in it. So let's pretend this eye is looking this way here. So we're going to have our little circle in the middle of that point, because let's say that's where the eyeball is looking. See? And using our knowledge on the recently acquired 3D technique I showed you guys, we can add these little curves to show that it is, in fact, a 3D object, and this is where it's pointing. And this is where our iris and pupil are going to be. Boom! That's pretty close to an eye. But how do we do the rest of it? We got the eyeball. How do we do the blinking? What's the actual eye shape about? Well, just like everything else, the eye shape is curved. The eye shape is technically curving around this eyeball. It's this skin that will curve around it like that. Because everything curves pretty much in nature and on our bodies. It's just how the world works. So when we're drawing this little eyeball, here I'll come down here to help. We're going to have this paper curve around it, just to show how it works. Everything curves. Now oh, hi Penguina-chan! Love the program that you used to render the avatar called Honk. Yeah, basically, I love Honk. Honk is a really good program for complex mouth shapes, and I'm doing good. How are you this morning? I'm teaching you guys how to do art stuff. Or at least I'm trying to. I don't know if I'm doing the best, but I'm going over how I do stuff, basically. Uh-oh, I'm out of water. I took a sippy, and I realized it was out. Okay, let's scoop my little eyeball up here and continue on that. So, clearly we have these little eyeballs suctioned into our heads here somewhere. But how do I know where to put them? Just like everything else, the head is proportioned, and the eyes tend to follow this rule of spacing. Let's say this is an eye, because eyes are kind of shaped like sad little lemons most of the time. And eyes typically do this proportion thing where they're separated between one another. let's say this is someone's head, these are going to be the eyes. Their actual eyes. So eyes are separated by another eye's size, basically. Like this. You're going to want an eye's length of space between them. There's my little eyes. Very rough drawn, but there they are. Yeah, you're going to want about an eye's space between them. So, hello, Zadder. I need to drink water and teach art, and I'm all out of water. Me. So, when translating that to a 3D situation here, I typically follow my circle just a bit, and I kind of eyeball it here. Because remember, there is more behind here, behind the circle. So I try and find about the middle of the face, like here. And that's where I typically know where the eyes are going to go. Somewhere here. And this works no matter where the angle of the face is. But for now, we're just working with a 3/4 angle. I don't want to get into anything too crazy. Now, how do we apply all these complex, tiny little shapes onto our picture here? Well, the eye isn't just an eyeball, like here. It does have lids. It has our little eyelids on top of it, like this. Here's the eyelid, and here's the eyeball inside. And that's where we get our tear ducts. It's the eyeball not quite being completely covered by these little eyelids here. Here's the eyelids. There they are. So to draw that a little more complexly, or without the eyeball in frame, it looks like that. Here's my eyelid, and here's our bottom eyelid. It's got this weird little lemon shape. As we can look here with this lady, we can see in here, here's her little eyeball, just hanging out. It's actually about this big. How to teach eyes. I just eyeball it. I mean, you're right. Here's her eyeball. It's about that big. Oh, I'm drawing on the layer. Whoops. There we go. This is her eye. Use a smaller brush. And then there's that iris. And then how do we figure out what her eyeball skin is? Well, here it is. Boom. Here's her lids. Covering that eyeball. It looks a little awkward from here. I wish you know please with my PC towel so I can follow along. Aw, Bubba, I believe in you. I'm sure you could follow along after the VOD's over. Also, this isn't my only little, like, advice on stuff. Alright, so how do I translate the eyelid in a 3D space in a 3/4 angle? So, like I said, here's my eye. Here it is, pointing. And just like when looking at it from a point-on-point perspective, like say this is our front view, our 3/4 view, we follow that point right here. And just like with our circle over here, where we follow the lines, we'll follow the perspective of the curve. This will curve over the eye over here and over it over here. It follows that 3D perspective. And since it's an eyelid, it kind of curves over the eyeball a little bit like that. I know it looks weird from here because we're just drawing the eyelid, but that's basically how an eyelid works. It's these little, like, folds, these little flaps, these tiny little, almost triangular flaps that fold over the eyes. Like I said, you can touch your eyeball. Or not your eyeball. Don't touch your eyeball. That hurt. But if you close your eyes and you just kind of touch your eyelids, you can figure out those shapes. It helps with both references of pictures as well as using yourself as a reference. Now, how do I translate that gobbledygook into actual, like, nice prettiness? Well, you just follow that lemony curve. Like that. And then you just do this. You close off the eyelid. I typically do this to kind of show a little fold of skin Because as you can see here, for her, she does have that skin fold. Because not all eyelids are created equal. They will fold over each other. Instruction unclear. Eyeball is now red. No, Penguin-chan, I said don't. But that will be the... This is all technically eyelid. But when drawing simplified structure, it won't always come out looking like that. There's our little eye. And that's our eyelid. So we're going to translate that to the face itself. We're going to find that spot where we know the eye is going to be, because we know where the spacing is, because like I said, this is an eyeball's worth of spacing. And here's the eyeball. We're going to follow the curve that we remember. We don't need to draw the eyeball in this piece. If you absolutely need to, go for it. But I don't think we need to for this, but you're going to remember that curve of that eye and follow it from up and down. And then we're going to remember that the eyeball is in there and the lid is sitting on top of it like I showed here. And we're going to just draw our little eyelid. Now how do I translate that over here? Isn't our eyes like sunk in slightly? And aren't our brows sticking out a bit? Well, yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. Over here, I will do the same thing for the eye. We're going to remember that lemony little curve of the eyelid. It looks kind of wonkus, but that's okay. And then we'll remember the eyelid on top. No, that's okay. That looks pretty good for a start. How do I do the rest of it? Well, the nose is a lot simpler in terms of structure because it's out and it doesn't have all these crazy little folds and like wraparounds with the eyelids and all that. The nose is just a little... I wouldn't necessarily say triangle because noses come in a variety of shapes. But since we're using her nose as an example, we will just keep it a simple triangle for now. And noses are just that. They are triangles. Since this is the middle of the face and we are keeping this face symmetrical, the nose is going to do the same thing. It's going to start on that line right here, how I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring it out like this. And then we're just going to bring it back in. Make this little 3D triangular shape. And to prove my point about nose shape, I'm going to do it over here and here as well. This is going to be the plane of my rectangle. And then here's the rest of it. The nose is just kind of... let's clean that up, actually. The nose is just kind of sticking out. It's like this little piece of paper, like this, that's been pushed out of the face. Like this. Here's my slope. And here's the side of my face. And here's the middle of that nose. It's a little triangle that's been shoved out of the face right here. And that's the most basic shape for the nose. Just a triangle that sticks out. As you can see here. It's somewhat the same way. Here's where her eyes are. Here's that line that I showed you here. And this is where that nose sticks out. Right here. Here's the plane. And then here's the end of the triangle. It slopes out. Now, like I said, there are a wide variety of nose shapes, so this is just one of a very, very basic one. Hers seems to do something like this. Here's her eyes, and then her nose curves. Like this. So, of course, you're going to curve your piece of paper, curve that little rectangle into more of a slide instead of a slope. And then underneath, remember, everything is a shape. Everything is a 3D object. Underneath, we're going to show off another face of that triangle. And then we're going to close it off. Because it's bent and turned. So instead of a slope like this, the slope has now been pushed into, and it's been curved like this. It's been bent like that. And as a consequence of that, we can see this, which translates to this. It's that little underside of this 3D object that we can't see right here. Because like I said, everything 3D. And that's how her little nose works. Now, to make it more complex, let's actually get rid of that because, like I said, oops, I drew on top of it instead of on a new layer. Hee hee. So, how do we translate the nostrils? How do we get all that crazy shit in the middle of the nose? Now that we have the rough shape of said nose, we can remember that shape. Now, visual inventory and referencing will always be a good thing for us, but visual inventory is one of the most overpowered weapons an artist can carry in their in their arsenal. Shoot me. Because yes, you can have references all day every day, but if you can remember what something just looks like based on your brain telling you it's correct, you're already ahead of the game. So if we can remember this curve of that nose, we can just draw it without putting down all of these little shapes. The shapes are just there as a reminder to tell you this is how it looks. You don't have to put them down necessarily to get the nose right. Over time, your brain will just click that that's what it's supposed to do. And then your brain will be able to figure out how to move those shapes to make, say, a hawk nose. Like I said, this girl's nose is curved like this, but what if I wanted to make like a big ol' honker? How do I do that? Well, here's my slope, but my slope doesn't look like that. Well, obviously, we want to push it. We want to push part of the slope, maybe like this. I pushed out my slope, I crooked this up, and suddenly that nose shape is looking pretty darn wonky, doesn't it? So over time, your mind will be able to just go, okay, this slope, that's a nose that looks like this. This slope, that's a nose that looks like this. It does this curve. This slope, oh, it's pushed out. It's a nose that looks like this. Over time, you will get much quicker and able to read the shapes pretty easily without having to just throw them down every time. But for now, this is for just you guys to have the visual library. Now, most tips of noses, because remember, this is just the bridge. This is just a basic line. The tip of the nose typically goes in 3 little circles. Remember, everything is a shape. Her nose is specifically these 3 little circles right here and here. Now, it's not just a circle. It's more like 3 circles that have been fused together, and her nostril over there is over here. So to show that over here, on a front view, we can see all my little eyeballs here. This is typically what a nose is. Here we go. Here's our little circle. And fused to it is 2 little nostrils. And if we, erase all this stuff, it kind of looks a lot like a nose. So if I were to draw this a bit better, let's do this. Kind of draw over it. Oh man, that kind of looks like a nose. Kinda, because that's just the basic shape of the nose. 3 little circles. And we can change these circles depending on how big or small we want our nostrils, but for now we'll just work with this. So how do we apply that to this thing? Well, obviously we can just layer it on top. We can just think about what it would look like on top of that little circle. On top of that little slope we have going on. Now, I know it looks a little wonky right now, but after we've broken it all down to its basic shapes, we can kind of draw with what our eyes are. We can try and take away a lot of this building blocks. Hello, Con. How you doing? My ability to put it into practice fails me. No, Pinguino-chan, you've got this. It just takes practice and eyeballing, or practice rather, on the shapes and the muscle memory, not just, you gotta practice art. Yes, it is a little con-con. But it just takes building up your visual library, really. And like I said, it takes practicing these shapes and practicing how to make 3D space and figuring out how to put shape to everything you're looking at. It sounds very daunting, and trust me, at first, it could be. Doing some lecture stuff with Chaotic, nice! Hoy Leon. Yes, hoy Leon. Leon is best bear. Oh, Leon got a vestie yesterday, so next time he shows up somewhere, he's gonna get to look real cute. I'm not I'm spoiling. No one has seen it yet. Seeing it is the surprise, but I want to let people know it's a vestie. And it's adorable. Well, seeing it is the surprise. I want to let people know the vestie. Uh-oh. Don't kidnap my bear. But yeah, now that we have all of these nose shapes taken into account, how do we put that down as a legible object that it's a nose? Well, if we are just doing this slope with these nostrils, for here, I'm just going to follow that curve. We're just going to pretend. And then we'll curve over that circle. There it is. There's my nose. How do I do the nostrils, though? Easy. You follow that curve right here. A little circle. But how do we do the actual holes? The nose is a fun little shape. If we're looking at it from, say, upside down, this is what it would look like. Here's one nostril, here's the tip, and here's another. And then we have, you know, our little nostril holes. Now, commonly the nostrils are usually seen like this. For her, we can see it right here. Here's that nostril curve, and here's the tip of her nose. But how do we connect that? There's her little nostril right here. It's underneath. Because the nostril isn't necessarily just a circle. It's a weird little complex system of like two half circles glued to one bigger circle. Because the nostril is technically like this weird cut circle like this, and it's attached to the tip right here. Like that. It's a really weird system. Like I said, you poke around, poke your nose, look at your nose at different angles in a mirror. Look at other people's noses, because we can do this right here. We can grab this and look at her nose from a front point. We can see that here's that bulb. Here's the little bulb of her nose, and here's the little half circles of her nostrils. Same thing over here. We can see it at this angle a bit better. Here's the circle. Here's the little half circles. You can see it a lot better here. Here's the half circle. Here's the circle. We're going to keep it here for now, though. So in order to read as a nostril, wrong brush, I'm going to curve that nostril just a bit, and I'm going to curve up a little bit to show that nostril. Right there. And remember, this is a giant circle right here that this thing is technically attached to. But we're shorthanding it, which is technically what an art style is, by the way, to kind of show off how it looks. So yeah, we got the shape down, and we got the nose down, kind of. Finally, the mouth. How does the mouth work? As stated before, the mouth comes at about the jawline. Not always, but typically. Hello, Tarochi. I'm doing good. I'm teaching all the lovelies in chat how I do my art stuff. And some basic advice on how to break down everything, I guess. Stuff I wish I would have known a lot sooner to help me figure out how shit works. But yeah, the mouth comes at about the angle of the jaw. Not usually, but not always, but commonly. And the mouth always stops at the middle of the eyes. So here's our eyes. So here is about the middle of them. Now this face is looking a little silly now. The proportions are a little awkward, but it's fine. It's just to break it all down and show you how everything works. And as stated, the mouth is kind of like it follows that shape of the head, so it will have slight curves. It will fit in this rectangle of curves that coil around the face just a bit. Mouths are not flat. Mouths curve around you. And mouths are also made out of very complex little shapes like everything else, but once again, it's all just shape at the end of the day. So how do I shape my mouths? Well, obviously, we're going to look at our front view for a bit. Obviously, we're going to start with the corner of the mouths here. And those are usually a lot puffier than the rest of you. Like, poke around your mouth a little. Just poke, poke. And you can feel that that little line is typically the widest point of your mouth, in a way, if that makes sense, when it comes to your mouth being open. Because it's where the most amount of skin is kind of bunched up. It's what lets your mouth do the big, stretchy, open thing. So it does feel like a little puffy around. But that's okay. And then, of course, we all have our mouth line right here between our lips, where everything is closed. But how do we get the lip shape? Well, once again, like noses and eyes, lips come in a variety of shapes. So we're going to work with just a run-of-the-mill, standard lip, a very common lip. Specifically, we can work with hers as well. As you can see here, she has that little bunch, like I said. Everything is kind of puffy here because we have a lot of skin here. Just a whole buildup of skin to help with the stretching of our mouths. Because if you open your mouth real wide, you can feel that tension in here just kind of goes away. It's just to help. Just to help with the mouth open. And then, of course, she has her mouth line. Now, since she is at an angle, once again, we're at an angle here for her. And we're at an angle at our reference. It's going to be easy to see the curves of the mouth. You won't be able to see it here, but as stated, the mouth does curve, just like everything else. And it's made out of these tiny little cushions all over the face. Specifically, it's cushioned here. It's got these, like, think of these like soft triangles right here. Because if you pinch your lips together, your bottom lips, if you pinch it, you'll realize there's this, like, little spot here where it'll just naturally fold in. It'll just bend there. Because the two most prominent points of your lips are squishy and right here in the middle. It's like these two little circles on your bottom lip that come to a triangle. It's basically a triangle and a circle put together. And then wedged onto your face. And then with the top, it's about the exact opposite. While this is pooching out, the top lip seems to kind of fold in to the face. It curves under your lip line almost, for some people. Specifically for her, too. Which is why we get that triangular, a curved angle here. And specifically, our mouths come with these little triangles right here, which usually causes, for a lot of people, a Cupid's bow, that little dip right here. And then it folds in right here and attaches. So it's made out of two triangles. This one triangle that's standing up, and then a second triangle that's on its tummy. So here's our big triangle, and here's our little triangle. And it'll do the same thing over here. And depending on who the person is, this Cupid's bow right here can be this deep, or it can be this kind of deep, or it can just not exist. Depends on the person. Everyone is different, but this is the basic shape for the mouth. And as we can see here, she is no exception. This is where her little puffy little circles are. And then there's her triangles. Right there. And then here we can see a little upper lip triangle. And then the laying down triangle next to it. How do we make this 3D though? Looks a little weird, don't it? I mean, kind of. From a front angle, it makes sense. These basic shapes. So how do we translate that to a 3/4 portrait? Well, like I said, everything is curved. Everything is made up of series of curves and straight lines. And just like with the nose, the mouth kind of cuts off somewhat. And just like this jaw back here, remember when I said, oh, we're smart adults, and we remember that there's a piece of paper hanging out back here that we cut, and we're going to remember the mouth does the same thing. It kind of folds around the face, and it makes it to where you can't quite see all of it because of that curve. So how are we going to curve this around the face? That sounds silly. Well, like this. Let's take our... Actually, let's turn this down just a bit. This music's getting crazy. I'm gonna copy that over and turn this down so I can see it. So we're going to find that little main line right here where all that skin is bunched up. Same thing over here. We're gonna meet them like that. Okay, cool. We've got our lip line. How do we make it look curved? Since this is turned, the middle of the lip are actually right here. Unlike here, where it's facing frontways, over here, the middle of the line would be here because of that curve. Remember, perspective. Remember that sphere, where if we want something to look like it's turned to the side, we just follow that curve perspective? Same thing applies here. So it's not going to be quite in the middle of where you see these 2 points. It's going to be more over here because of the perspective and the angle we have it at. And we're going to follow this diagram here onto this face. And so this face does have its little circles right here. And then we'll bring it up to its point right here. And then we'll give it its triangles up here, right like it. And then we're going to fold it in to that point again. How do we translate that over here? You do it the same way, but much shorter. Because remember, this is kind of bunched in. So everything is going to do the same thing, but it's going to be a lot squished in. Our circle is going to look normal on this side, but over here it's probably going to look kind of ovally. It's kind of getting squished. Arguably, it's going to overlap. It's going to underlap under that circle like this. Because remember, we're kind of seeing this more than this. It's overlapping it a bit. And then we close it off. So there's kind of what our lips look like. And I will show you that from her as well. See here, we have our circle, but this one's going to be much smaller. And we have her triangle, but this one's going to be much smaller as well. Because the mouth is technically doing this. The middle point is coming to here. And another fun little note, mouths aren't necessarily flat when it comes to curves around the up and down. How do I describe this? It's not vertically flat either. Horizontally it curves around the face, but vertically it sticks out. Like, remember when like you put Pringles in your mouth to be silly? and the Pringles would like curl out of your mouth like this, and you'd be like, "I'm a duck," ha ha ha. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sure everyone's done the duck thing. Well, think of lips as kind of like those Pringles. The lips curl away from each other. So say here's one lip up here. It's facing this way. And here's the other lip. What's its actual shape? Well, if we're just going with a simple curve, the lips curve like this. Remember, just like that circle where we followed the perspective, the lips are curving outward like that. And if you're looking at them from the side, it's like this. They're doing this really funny curve out from each other. So for her, we can see it as well. Here's that lip, and here's that bottom lip, and it's curving this way. Because it's pooching out. Pringles bill is best, I agree. Best in slot. So now that we have all that good shit marked down, we can finally draw the lips without all these kooky shapes. So we'll follow that design that I did for the eyes and the nose. We're going to find those lip spots again and follow the lip line. And instead of drawing all those shapes, we're going to just kind of go over them and remember that how we shaped them out to begin with. And we're going to follow it like this. And remember, these lips are curling like this. So it doesn't hurt to have this forced little perspective of like, maybe this part of the lip curves out a bit more like this, because it's following that curvature. Same thing with the bottom lip. It's following that curvature, so it's going to do this. And it sticks out like this little diamond. A diamond's a pretty good example of lip shape. Something like this. And the lips are curved here as well, because they're both sticking out. So that is how I would break down the different ways a face can be made. It's all just a bunch of little shapes put together to make this really cohesive look. So, how do we do anything else? There we are. There's our basic face. How do we get the rest of it done? As stated, everything is a shape. The neck is just a tube, which is a circle with, you know, a cone, or not a cone, a piece of paper wrapped around it from the edge. Well, how do I do that? Easy. Let's just practice the tube real quick. Here's our top of our tube. Now, remember, if we want to make perspective of a tube or a cone, we're going to want to squish our circle just to give the perspective of it looking like a can. And here's our tube. It's going to curl here as it does here because it follows that curving perspective. Same thing with a cone. Cones will have that squished nature and will come down like that. And it is technically a 3D shape, as you can see. And that is the basis of how you pretty much draw everything. Find something you want to draw and put it to a shape. Whatever shapes help you figure it out, that's going to be good for you. This is just how I do the shapes for my lips and my nose and my eyes, as well as my face and jaw. And for you, it could be something completely different. And you might not need all those crazy shapes in order to visually understand where the 3D object is going to go in the 2D space. Oh, I did realize though, we forgot eyebrows. She has eyebrows. How come my guy don't have eyebrows? Whoops, that's because I'm a dunce, everybody. So how exactly do eyebrows work? Much like how the eyes are sunk in, the eyebrows are pushed out. I mean, you could always come in and just do this, but that looks a little silly. If we're working on the brow actually sticks out from the head, like this. And just like everything else, the eyebrow is actually going to... Well, both of the eyebrows, rather, are going to follow the 3/4 rule. Because, coming back to my lovely little model here, the 3/4 rule, everything on this side is going to be bigger than on this side because it's closer to the camera. That perspective brings it more into focus. In that vein, with the eyebrow is going to be closer and bigger and longer than the one over here. It's also going to overlap the eye a bit more. See how the eye is right here and the eyebrow comes out here? But over here, the eye is out here and the eyebrow doesn't overlap it at all on that side. Because if we were to look at it from a front view, the eyebrows seem to kind of go above the eyes like this a bit. There's that weird overlap of the eyebrow tip when she's looking straight ahead. It's not like that here. The eyebrow tip doesn't start here. It starts over here. It's because of the angle. You have to remember those angles. So for here, it's going to look like this. And to put it into a shape, here would be where our eyebrows could be, and it sticks out like this. Our eyebrow shapes for our face stick out. So it would be following this eye, it would go a bit over it. And over here, it would go a bit over it this way. That way it would be like this here, and that angle here. Just like we see here. Because brows, like I said, do this. They stick out. The brow sticks out, and then the parts of the eye come in. And once again, just touch your face, pop on your eyebrow, figure out the curves of those brows you got going on, because we are our own best reference. So these eyebrows are going to be sticking out just a bit, kind of like that. And that is how we do our basic shape. Now, if I were to run my pen on this lady's face to figure out the curves of her face, now that we know what the face does in order to get all these curves, I think I have a pretty good idea of how to do it. So, as you know, her face isn't just this straight line. This is just a perspective of which her angle is. If I wanted to follow her actual, like, face curves, you're going to want to follow those shapes. Now, you can see them here most prominently, the shapes of the face. You can see that her cheeks are like little circles. You can see her chin is a little circle. And you can see that her nose is sticking out like this. So I'm going to follow that. I'm going to follow across her forehead like this and dip in because that's what the nose does. Follow the nose. And then we curve into it. And remember, the mouth sticks out. So we curve out to pop out of the mouth because the tip sticks out. And just like down here, the tip sticks out again. And it pops out like this. And for the chin sticks out as well. the chin does this little circle. The chin's a little bloop. A little bloopy bloop right here. So we're going to curve and pop it out again. And that is the shape and silhouette of her face. If we were to draw a line down her face perfectly, this is what it would look like once she turned her head. And we can do this on any angle, just like the circle I showed you guys to make it into a sphere. Everything has curves like that. So pretending this is a bit of a circle, we can do the same thing here. We can follow that line, and we can follow it here too. Because remember, if this was a circle, the perspective of the line, the circle would be, the straight line would be here. So everything is curving around the head just a bit. But, ho-ho, we're not following the nose anymore. What's happening here? It's the brow. Remember, the brow is sticking out. It's sticking out, and the eyes come in. So this is going to dip down, like that. And because the eye is a circle, and we're following that perspective, we're going to curve it, like that. We're going to curve around the circle, that sphere that we have. And because the cheeks are also little circles, we're going to follow them and curve them, like that. And then come to the chin, or the jaw. And the lines should probably go across the mouth just a bit like this. Because remember, the middle of the eye is typically where the mouth is, like here. So this curve would be met to about here. I know it looks complicated now, but that's just me remembering the curves that I showed you guys the face is made of, and then putting it all together. And that is the basics of a head. Now, there are more things you could do to make it look a bit better, because obviously this head's proportions are a little wonky, but that's okay. Over time, after looking at faces, tracing over them like this to get reference points, not to, trace and be like, oh, I drew all of this art, it's mine. No, this is all tracing for reference sake, not for stealing's sake. It's to help you learn. It's a learning tool. We're not posting this on the internet, because that would be foolish. Now, how do we accumulate all of this into maybe hair or clothes? Those are a bit more complex, and they follow the shape based on what gravity and weight is doing to them. That is something a bit more... I mean, we all understand what that means, but it's really hard to put into practice if you are relatively new to drawing and relatively new to drawing these shapes specifically. Because if we're not used to the shapes that the face and the arms make, and the legs and the torso, we don't know how to apply hair or clothes to that. We don't know where it's going to fall because we don't know the shapes. So what I would suggest is practicing these little shapes. Practice drawing a sphere, practice trying to make it look 3D, because remember, you're not just drawing a sphere, you are drawing what an eyeball shape is, the parts of a cheek, the parts of a nose, the parts of a jaw, or not a jaw, a chin. You're drawing you're drawing a snowman. Like, we have all of these different shapes that can come together and make pretty much anything. So if you can just draw a sphere, a cube, and a cone and a tube, you got this. You learn how to put them together and manipulate them into making anything. And then after that, it's all a matter of putting them together. So how would I do all of this without all of the perspective and fixtures to draw a human head? Going back to my circle, I'm not going to add any guidelines. We're going to just follow all of this that I've shown you up to this point to see if we can do it without the guidelines. We're going to draw our circle. Remember, use your elbow, not your wrist. We're gonna try and draw a nice little circle. It can look however, and it can take you as many tries as possible as you want, and you can draw over it and erase whatever you don't like if you are traditional, just like this. Like, oh, that part of it looked dumb. Let's erase it and try again. There we go. Doesn't hurt. And here's my circle. Now, I do still draw a couple of guidelines, personally, just to make sure I keep everything proportion. And I do add my 3/4 line. Let's do it a little better. There we go. To show where everything is. And for my paper, whenever I'm adding my paper... Oh, I remembered something else I usually do. After I add my paper, which I add it pre-cut, I remember where I sliced it here. And I just come in with it basically cut already, like that. And then I find my chin. And remember, this piece of paper is cut and back here, but we don't see that because it's folded in. And that's my jaw. That's how I draw my jaw. I remember it. I also do something else that helps me personally, but it doesn't have to work for you if you don't need it. I do this. I add like this little curve and this little dip. Now what I'm doing here is I'm cutting my sphere. You know how you have a circle here? Here's our 2D shape. Let's pretend that's what it is. I'm doing this. I'm hacking off this part of the circle. And, of course, on the other side, it would look like this as well. Because our heads aren't actually fully circles. They're these little spheres with this weird indentation, this little flat spot on the side of our head. And, like I said, if you grab your head, you will feel that spot. So instead of curving around the circle fully, like this, our lines... if we slice off, like say I took a knife and I went whooshing and I cut off like a piece of it, that is now a flat surface, and here is the round part of the circle. I literally slice off a piece of my circle. But this is just for me, it helps me. And then I find my eye line. It's about the halfway point. There it is. My jaw is a bit big. Let's fix that. You can, of course, move stuff around if it looks a little wonky, especially on a digital platform. If you're doing this traditionally, I'm sorry, I cannot help you move stuff around like this. This is primarily a digital medium, after all. My music's a little quiet. Let's turn it up just a bit. There we go. Let me finish my knife. There we go. But yeah, whoosh, my knife cuts that off. And there's my piece of the head. Here's my eye line. And I usually start with my eye line first. And I like to just draw my eyes. Now, using my own memory and visual library, I remember that eyes are an eye length apart. And I just eyeball it. I go, okay, well, I want my eyes to look like this, and this is the space. Over time, you will naturally just know how to do this. What about tracing, sketching over 3D models you self have posed? No, that is not counting as stealing or cheating. That is technically count as referencing. In fact, I know a lot of webcomic people do that now, specifically to just speed up the process. I wouldn't recommend relying on it too heavily, because in the long run it is kind of a crutch, but it is a very good reference point to help you. Because sometimes I'll still have to sketch over something once in a while in order to get the exact angle that I want, but try not to use it so much that you are reliant on it. You still want to be able to just pull out art without having to rely on a 3D program. Because let's say you're out on Procreate or something and you want to draw and you don't have your 3D model. Suddenly you... Well, I used to actually get anxiety and freak out over not being perfect at it because I didn't have 3D models or references with me. Because I used to sketch over them a lot. So just be careful with it. It is a good tool, but don't be heavily reliant on it. But right now, while practicing, go for it. But try to practice without sketching over it. Try to look at it while drawing it instead of going completely over it, and see if you can get it just as good. But yeah, I use my visual inventory to remember, hey, this is an eye's length apart. And typically, it's an eye's length apart here, too. But my style makes it to where my eyes are a bit bigger, so that rule isn't hard and fast for me specifically. But typically, the eye is also about an eye's length apart from the edge of the head to the edge of the eye as well. And for my nose, I just remember, oh yeah, it's curved. And for this nose, I want it to curve out. I'm just going to make it a simple little thing. And remember, I follow that circle line here. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to close off my nose about here. And I'll add a nostril, because that's how I do my little nostrils. We're going to go over style, by the way, in just a bit. I'm just showing you how I break down this into a fast little sketch. And then I remember, okay, here's the jaw. So here's the mouth. It's going to follow that jawline. And it curves around the mouth, curves around the face just a bit. And then I'll add some simple lips. Let's just add a little boofy lip and a bottom lip. There it is. And there's my simple sketch. And then, of course, we'll just add a little bit of eyebrows. And I personally will remember, oh yeah, this eyebrow sticks out a bit more because of how the curves of the eyebrows work, while this eyebrow comes out farther outward like this from the eyelid. Like that. And that's how I do just a quick little sketch while remembering all of these little fundamentals. And one day you will be able to do the same thing. You just have to practice the proportions and the shapes. Now, when it comes to artistic style, that's a whole nother can of fun noodles. And it's something that I hear a lot of artists wondering and worrying about. My personal art style, how do I do this? How do I make myself look unique? Well, first of all, art style isn't necessarily something that will make you unique, because some people get commissioned or hired for... Oh, let me save this, actually. I haven't saved this in a while. And by a while, I mean not at all. Do as I say, not as I do. Please save often. But a lot of people have actually gotten hired and commissioned because they have actually emulated other styles, such as Disney or Tim Burton or certain anime styles, because, believe it or not, a lot of anime styles that we see people drawing in has already been done before by a show or a manga. It's not original. And my style is just technically an accumulation of a couple of styles that I've seen and adapted to my hand. Nothing is original. No style is unique. We don't need to worry about all that. Don't worry about looking unique. It will end up unique because of just the nature of your interests. You want a thing to look like a certain way, so you draw it that way. That's just how styles develop. So, how would I classify an art style? How do I develop one anyway? Well, when people talk about, oh, this doesn't look realistic or this doesn't look good, or you have to follow the rules before you break them and all that good shit, or, oh, you're not drawing that right. Typically, people are comparing it to like some sort of realism or semi-realistic art style where the eyes are completely proportioned correctly and the nose is proportioned correctly. And you'll see this in art class. I'm sure a lot of high schoolers or people just out of high school or even college will be like, I was told this nose looked dumb because it wasn't realistic enough. And I've even heard some people say, oh, my teacher didn't like my art piece because the nose looked silly, even though it was, or said that the nose shape was unrealistic, even though it was literally based off of my own nose shape. Those are asshole teachers. And that is sadly what a lot of teachers do in high school and sometimes in college. They want you to follow this curriculum, and that's what the quote-unquote good style and rules of art are supposed to be. If Tim Burton was in high school right now drawing the way he does now, he'd be told he's actually bad, and that, you know, the eyes don't look like that, and the arms aren't that skinny, and the hair's not that frizzy. His art style is phenomenal, and it's iconic. People recognize it immediately. I remember being told this. It's when I just dropped out. Yeah, and that's the most fucked up part. Art school and high school art classes are not there to teach you how to be creative. They're there to teach you how to follow a very strict set of rules that the curriculum has set for you, and it is absolutely awful. It is not a good learning environment for people who actually want to create. So, for me, what is an art style? It's how you shorthand your 3D objects in your 2D space. How do I show people that this is a nose? How do I show people this is eyes? We are a species that can recognize a face in almost anything. We will look at a rock weird and be like, I see a face. And art styles can kind of play with that, if that makes sense. So we're going to scooch you on over here so I can show you what I mean. This is technically an art style. Here, let's do this. What is that? It's a happy little guy. It's a happy smiling little dude. How do you know that's a happy smiling little dude, though? I didn't draw a nose. I didn't draw what my teachers told me to in high school. I didn't follow all of the little rules. He doesn't have, you know, perfectly 3D shaded nostrils or hair or perfect eyebrows. I know what that is, though. That's art style. It's learning how to shorthand. And shorthand is knowing what to take out. Less is more most of the time when it comes to art styles. Yumiko, smile. So yeah, shorthand is what your style is. It's what you're consciously choosing to consistently take away to make into a unique picture. Let's erase this little guy. Goodbye, sir. So what do I mean by taking stuff away? Well, let's try something chibi. Chibi's pretty cute. Let's follow what I told you guys with the sphere for the head. Here it is. This is our little chibi head. But chibis have pretty squishy faces. So what are we going to do with that paper jaw? Remember I taught you the paper jaw? Yeah, well, chibis don't have that. Chibis have like these dumb little bean faces. They have like these tiny squishy little faces. Some don't even have that. But they have the squishiest, tiniest little beans. Like this little stupid squish on their face. That's not paper. That's a dumb little squishy bean. Yeah, well, it's cute. That's what we've decided to consistently change to stay in this style. Okay, well, what about the eyes? Let's make them super big and expressive. Let's make this thing huge. Man, that's a huge-ass eye. Well, yeah, that's not proportioned. No. That's not an eye's length apart, is it? No, that's not. Well, then why are you drawing it that way? Because I consciously chose to make the eye fucking bugged. Look at it. It's huge. It's a big ol' eye. Here, let's do this way. This way's cuter. Damn, that's a big-ass eye. I know. But it's the style. What about the nose? I don't want a nose. What do you mean? Everyone has noses. I don't care. I don't want to draw a nose. I'm consistently choosing to take out my nose. Now let's add a cute little mouth. It's just a line, though, so where's all the squishy bits? Where's all those circles and triangles you were showing me? I don't feel like adding that either. And there's my squishy little chibi face. Now let's just give him little eyebrows instead. Oh, but the brow sticks out. So, I'm not doing that for him. And this is what I mean by style. Learning what to take away to make what you want. Let's give him big ol' expressive eyes. Yeah. I'm not the best at chibis, but you get the idea. You saw how I transferred that more semi-realism looking face way over here on page 12, I guess. And now over here, I've translated it into something really small and cute. Because I chose for it to look that way, and I took away certain parts because we know what that is. It's a face. Well, how do we know it's a face? Because our brains tell us it is. We know what to leave in to let it be a face. And that's art style. That's it. That's all an art style is. It's figuring out how you want to draw the thing to make it look enough like the thing for it to register in your monkey brain and go, that the face, that the face. That's basically it. So when you see this big titty anime mommy with this really tiny dumb little chin and these like big ass eyelashes and eyes and stuff, like this is look terrible and stuff, but you get it. And then this tiny little dot for a nose, it still registers because our brains know what all this is. It's just a different style. There she is. There's our big titty anime waifu. Her head is very squished in. Their heads are actually usually huge like this. But there she is. There's our big anime waifu. Because we gave her the big ass eyes. I feel called out. No, Himiko. No, 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 no. I don't mean it that way, please. But you get the idea. You see the tiny little dot and you know it's a nose. Why do you know it's a nose? Because your brain tells you, it tells you it's a nose. Your eyes are used to seeing this kind of stuff. Himike is, oh, Gardevoir. Mwah. Yeah, your Gardevoir was beautiful. But yeah, that is art style. That is how you start to develop one. You figure out how you want to break down the different proportions of something. Same thing with Tim Burton. Let's go Tim Burton real quick. How does he do stuff? Well, obviously we're going to start with our head again. But this guy does something real crazy. Just like with anime, he likes his chins pretty small and pretty short. So here's the curve of our head. And here's his chin. He doesn't really have jaws, though. He just kind of makes it a triangle and calls it a day. And here's the half part of our face. But he doesn't necessarily follow that. He makes his eyes just these giant, bugged-out circles. And sometimes, they're even, like, super close together. And instead of going crazy and doing all this, like, complex iris shit, he just does a little dot. And for noses, well, it's just the skinniest, tiniest little triangle. Sometimes he doesn't even add a nostril, but when he does, it's usually pretty jank looking. And then here's his mouth. It's just another line, just a simple little line. And then let's say he adds his character being scared. He just kind of, oh no, my pad's not working. There we go. He just kind of squiggles in those eyebrows. This man does not give a fuck. I've had a Gardevoir on every competitive team since X and Y. It's true. Leon loves him a Gardevoir. Gardevoir is a good girl. Good Pokemon. I don't know if he ever even adds ears to his characters, but if he does, they'd be these tiny little half circles. His style is very reminiscent, though. People recognize it immediately. If you were to look at this, you'd be like, yeah, that's Tim Burton. And if it's a girl, well, just slap on a couple lines there to register that those are eyelashes, because in most Western cultures, we see eyelashes and think feminine. Longer eyelashes indicate femininity because that's always been the shorthand for cartoons. I mean, yeah, it's a joke that you just put eyelashes and like a pink bow on it and it's a girl, but that's just what they've been doing, and now our brains register that because it's been happening for at least 70 years of cartoon and media consumption. So we add eyelashes to this bitch, and look, it's a girl now. And it registers as a girl, as weird as that sounds. Had a shiny one in X and Y, but he was a lad. Pretty black dress wearing bad bitch. But this is how you do style. You just figure out how you want to register the thing. Do you like big old bug eyes? Do you like the anime look? Do you like no noses? Do you like huge ass noses? I don't know. Do you like big old poochy lips? Do you like the manhwa look, where it looks pretty realistic? With like a dash of like quote unquote anime or the manga look. By the way, manhwa is how I draw pretty much. Not quite so realistically when it comes to the eyes. My eyes are a bit more anime looking. Here, we'll pull up something I drew for the lovely Himiko. Actually, we'll pull up Medic. Let's pull up Medic and Himiko's raffle win. So, right here you can see my eyes are pretty big and expressive. That's typically how I draw them. And they are a bit more anime, especially when it comes to, like, eyelashes and stuff. And my lips are typically more manhwa, which is a lot more detailed than anime lips. So it's like a weird hybrid combo. Same thing here with the raffle winner. Look at a beautiful lady. Look at her. She's got the, like, more expressive anime eyes, but the nose isn't quite just a dot like you see in typical anime. I like to have actual noses on my characters. And then you have the lips, which are a bit more detailed. They're not just a line. They have color on them. More like a manhwa than anything else. Here I can pull up a male to show off a more masculine lip. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. But, yeah, that's how I do my face. That's my art style. I do more anime eyes because I like the big expressive eyes, because I realized my old style didn't have that. I wanted to draw these big, expressive, pretty eyes, but my old style was very limiting, and I can show you what I mean. Let's actually grab a comic I used to draw a lot. It's no longer available. It's no longer public to read because the website that it was on went down. But we're going to pull out a picture that I used, or rather a picture that I drew to kind of register that this girl was staring intently at her sister. And this is my really old style. It looks pretty jank. It looks a lot more realistic in terms of what my stuff looks like now. I know it looks like two different people drew this. I'm glad. I'm glad the art style looks... I'm glad people like the raffles. But, yeah, you can see the eyes are, like, wide and bug-eyed and stuff, and it's a little uncanny because she herself has a more realistic look to her. Now, let's pan back to a piece of art I did, I want to say sometime last year. Let me go find her. Where is she? Because she has an expression similar to that. There she is.
So these two basically share the same eye thing that I wanted to do. However, as you can see, it looks completely different. With her, it looks almost a little wonky, a little awkward, and it's not as expressive. It's just like, huh? It doesn't have as much of a punch, while with her, it's expressive as hell. She is clearly angry about something. And I wanted her to have something kind of like that. Not really angry, but very upset, talking about their family and all that, but she doesn't, it doesn't quite hit it. So, style, for me, is about trying to figure out how to make my expressions like this. I want them to read as very big and bold and expressive, and my old style just was not cutting it. It wasn't helping. So that is now why I do this. These big eyes and the smaller lips, but I still like having lip color because it's just very pretty. Same thing with this. That's why I was able to do this so well. If her mouth was more realistic, it wouldn't have done this little grumpy meow. She wouldn't have been able to do this little meh. His mouth I would have been able to do, but also with the other raffle winner. If I still drew the same way I do now, or yeah, if I drew back then, or if I draw now how I drew back then, there we go, I wouldn't be able to do this as well. Look at her mouth and her eyes. It's a lot more expressive than what I could do in a more realistic look. So style helps with that. Style helps convey not only an idea, but also strong emotion as well. That's why manga and anime have a lot of these really good expressions, because they have the styles to back that up. So it's all about, honestly, what you want to do at the end of the day. Do you want to have this frightful, haunted, creepy look? These really uncanny, spindly characters with these really long, creepy fingers and hands and like, oh my god, what is that thing? Or do you want something cuter, sweet, baby, childlike? You know, sweet and chumby and very cute. Or do you just want to draw like me and be dumb? It's all about how you want to convey your art. What's your style? Like, what's your aesthetic? And you can apply your style to that. So now that I've rambled about that for 5,000 years, I'm going to go over the basics of how hair works, because we have a head. How do we put hair on this damn thing? Well, I don't know. There it is. Oh no, I ripped the face. I ripped the face off. Here, let's cut that out. So we figured out how to make 3D shapes in a 2D canvas. There it is. So here's my face. How do we do neck? Remember, neck is technically a tube, but the neck is a bit more complex than that. If you reach around and touch your neck, you can feel it. It kind of does this weird, like, weird little shape, like it's been stretched almost, like a tube's been stretched. And typically the neck attaches to this part of the head. It doesn't go to the jaw right here. It goes a bit behind it, because it's supposed to hold the head, and it goes to about the middle of where the head would be, which, like I said, is about here. So the neck starts farther back than the angle of the jaw. And since this is at a curve, the neck is also doing this curve, and it sticks out right here. And here's the closing of my tube there. And there, that's the neck. Now we're just going to keep the head and the neck for now, because I want to show how hair works. And hair and clothes can be applied to the same thing, because they're both things that can fall and drape around these 3D shapes that we all are made of. My head is itchy. Speaking of hair, my hair itched a little. My scalp itched just a tiny bit. I think this headset's giving me itchies. But, yeah, how are we going to wrap hair around this thing? Well, like I said, 3D object, sphere. if we are looking at the sphere from here, we know that it can curve like this. So if I want to find the hairline, I'm going to curve around the sphere. I'm going to do this. Let's make it red. I'm going to curve around the sphere like this. Oh look, that's probably a good spot, because remember, we do have a bit of a forehead before our hairline actually starts. Which all of our hair is typically like here. This is where it's all like, oops, comes together. And typically hairlines work like this. They can be straight, like that, or they can have a widow's peak, like this. It's usually just one or the other, and I don't know if widow peaks are hereditary, but I don't think it matters. It's just whatever you're feeling like. Do you want the little widow's peak, or do you want your hair to be straight across the forehead? I personally have a widow's peak, I think. I think I have a little bit of one. You can't see it because my bangs are in the way, but I have a bit of one. So we're going to give this guy a widow's peak, since I have one. And widow's peaks just work like this. Remember, we're going to shape around the head, just like this, and remembering that curve. And this is going to be the starting point of our hair. I'm going to have the hair coming across the middle. There we go. Sorry, my tablet was acting up. I'm going to have the hair coming out, and it's going to be parted. I'm just going to part it right here. So we're going to add this little seam to kind of show where the hair is going to fall from. Now, hair itself is also technically a 3D object. We're going to have to see the locks of hair as 3D shapes. Because if I sat here and I tried to draw every single hair strand and where it fell from, we would be here for a long fucking time. And remember, we're not here to draw everything super realistically. We're here to draw everything in shapes. Because if we know what everything looks like in terms of shape, we'll know how to draw everything. So, hair is a bit weird. It acts sort of like someone took ribbons and just stripped them, like this. Let's say we have a ribbon here. Here it is. We cut it. You know, it's just this little ribbon. It's a piece of paper, a really long, thin piece of paper or ribbon. And we lay it out on top of the head. How is that going to look? Well, if we're not going to give this guy bangs, we're just going to drape the hair over the head. And if we taped that ribbon, this little ribbon here, like this, just this simple rectangle. If we taped the edges here, this little edge, this thing, and if we glued it here and we laid it on top of the head, the ribbon would kind of start to fall in place with where all the curves on the head is. So let's turn down the opacity for this so we can see it a little bit better. Here's my ribbon. And then my ribbon would just kind of drape over the head, like this. There it is. There's my ribbon. See, it's attached. It got glued to the middle, and let's attach another ribbon. Let's staple it there, and oh look, here it is. Here's my ribbon, attached. Now let's glue another one. And there it is. It's dangling on the head. Okay, cool. But what does that mean for the rest of it underneath? Well, they're all ribbons. Underneath here, there's clearly more ribbons, but you can't see them. And that's okay. We don't need to see them right now, because we're just looking at these top ribbons right now. And same thing over here. Let's tape this ribbon, but how do I see it over here if it's going over the face? Well, remember that jaw, we're big, strong, smart, capable adults. We know that there is a jaw right here somewhere on the other side of the face that we can't see. And since we have object permanence, we're going to go, oh, the ribbon does the same thing. Here's my ribbon. And just like with that piece of paper, you know how it folds like this? It folds around the head like that. The ribbon's going to do the same thing. Our ribbon's gonna fold over the face like that. See, it's got this little curve, and same thing over here. We have a ribbon, and the ribbon is technically over here doing this, but we can't quite see it. And then let's add another ribbon, and that ribbon is doing the same thing. It's over here, and it's falling over that side of the face, but we can't quite see that. It's all opaque like that. And that's the basics of how hair drapery works. You think about where it's attached, and then you kind of pull out these ribbons from that spot, which is how you get different hairstyles for this being right here. Now, remembering where the ribbons fall, we're going to give them a little hairstyle. Now, just like with her, we'll see where her ribbons on her head fall. Here's that spot that I showed you right here. And she doesn't have a widow's peak, but we're going to pretend she does. There's the curves of that widow's peak right here. And as you can see here, here's a ribbon. Here's a little strand of ribbon draping around. Here's another one. Since her hair waves a little bit, the ribbons clearly wave with each other like this. And they all fall together into this neat little bun she has in the back. And they all fold together into this point. Same thing over here. Here's that ribbon. Oh, but see, it's back here, and it's behind her face, but we can't see it. So we don't really need to worry about drawing that. And then the ribbon just overlaps one another like this. So if we were to emulate that style over here, we would go, okay, so my ribbons are going to do this. They're going to pull around her head, because pretend these are like strings that are going to follow where the ribbons are going to go. Here's my string. Oops, not on the wrong layer. Here's my string. It's going to curve around the head like this. And remember, we're still keeping that curve of that sphere on the head. Because see, this one isn't as curved because it's not so on top of the sphere. This one's going to curve more because it's more on top of that. And then since this is cut off, it is going to dip on that straight line. And then same thing here. It's going to curve a bit more. And that's where our ribbons are going to go. Cool, cool, cool. So how do we fold them in? Well, we're going to find a little spot to put these little strings on. We're going to find that spot and put those little strings on that little tack right here that we're plopping down. How do we fold that into actual hair, though? Hair is a very fickle little thing. It is made up of thousands and thousands of strands. So how do we read that as strands? There's multiple ways to do it. You could have the ends have these tapers like this. You could have your ribbons have these tapers and be pinched in like this. You could pinch in your ribbons at the end and just kind of do that. It reads as hair. Maybe add a line or two to be like, yeah, look, see, it's hair. It's a hair piece. But that's not what I do personally. It's just an option you can do. You can go as complex or as simple as you want. You could just leave it like this if you wanted, if that's the style you were going for. But for me, I typically go, okay, here's my little hatchings that I showed you, my little hair pieces. Because the ribbon is lifting off the head a bit, so I'd like to have that underneath here. And then here's my hair piece fallen into place. And I like to show the hair being crimped like this. See, here's technically where the hair piece and tapering is. And then I follow that line with my little placement. And then I add more hair lines right here at the ends. And there you can see my ribbon here has been pinched on either side and does this almost. Because that's basically a hair's shape. It's been pinched in. And that's how I do my hair. Same thing over here. My stuff is pinched in. And we're going to just pull it all into that point right here. And that's how we do this little hair swoopy this lady has. And we can translate that to pretty much any hair shape we want. If we want just a simple bob cut, like let's say we'll give them bangs like this. And this is just looking front view, by the way. If we want to give them like this real Karen haircut, like this, we'll follow the curves of the head once more. Remember, follow that curve here and the curve here. And we're going to give them bangs right here and here. And since this circle is curved like this, see how the circle will curve with the face, the bangs will curve with that. The bangs curve across the face like this. And that's how we do the bangs. Now the bangs are attached to the head, specifically over your hairline like this, because it is a bit of hair. You will need a good piece or a chunk of hair that is growing from this spot. So it will overlap your hairline quite a bit. And then, once again, we'll have our ribbons falling down. Let's add a ribbon here. Whee! There's our little ribbon. And then let's add another ribbon falling down, and then another ribbon. And same over here, we'll have our ribbons coming over one another. Because remember, if it's overlapping, here's a ribbon. If we have one behind it, and it overlaps, you can't see it. Because it's technically right here. But this is over it. Because remember, the jaw, it's there, but you can't see it. Hair, can't see it. Ugh, excuse me. I had to get a little cough out. I think I'm thirsty. I'm talking too much. But that is essentially what's happening on that side of the head. You cannot see this. It is doing this. Here's my ribbon. It's behind those bangs. And then it can stick out over here. Same thing with this ribbon. It's coming down like this, but you can't quite see it. And then here it is, sticking out. And then here's this ribbon. It's coming down, but you can't see it. But you know it's there. And that's how we do a little bob. Now, how do we translate that to actual hair? Well, let's turn it down and find out. Remember? Awooga! Hi, Captain Ryza. How you doing? I'm showing people how to do hair. I have gone over the basic shapes of faces and how to figure out how you want your own style to look like, which, once again, it does take years of experimentation on how you like to draw stuff, and it will continue to evolve. That's just the nature of styles. As you get better, your stuff looks better. But how do we make this little bob of ribbons look like hair? Remember, the hair is tapered. It can be pinched off, like this. But we know realistically by looking at bobbed cut hair. Let's go look at one, actually. Bob cut. Let's go pull a bob cut. Let's find one with the bangs like I have here. There we go. We can see here that bob cuts are pretty straight. They don't taper like this. That's because that's just how it's been cut. Specifically, they've cut it to do this straight ass line. They've cut it to do this, and like I said, they cut the bangs to do that curve. And it's got that cute little cut, so we don't have to worry about tapering any of these lines. But as you can see here, there can be some tapering, just a bit, but nothing crazy. Because not all hair works exactly how you want it to. So we will work with the bangs first. The bangs are cut straight, so we don't have to worry about any tapering or anything. We just have to worry about the bangs coming off the head, like right here. And I am following... These lines are following the curvature of the bangs in relation to the curvature of the head. Because remember, this curved line, that 3/4 angle, the bangs are going to follow that. So there we are. There's our bangs following that curved line. And then here's our ribbons following that curved line. Doing this. And let's say our hair does this too. It tapers a bit right here, just like here. But the rest of it doesn't really taper. So we can just keep that a straight line. And it curves, because remember, everything is curved, pretty much, in some degree, to follow the 3D space. And then over here, we'll have a piece of hair sticking out like that. We'll have it taper in, just like here. And then we'll have the rest of the hair a bob cut. Just like that. And boom, there's our bob cut. And here's our ribbons from the other side. And that's how you get a simple bob cut. So hair can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. It just depends on what you want it to look like. And once again, reference. It will help you so much in the long run. And that's how I usually do my hair. I make sure to taper it where it would look nice. And at the end of the day, it's all about what looks nice to you. I put this little taper here because I felt like doing it. You don't have to do that. You can keep that straight as if you want to. Or you can taper it on every single corner if you'd like this. It's just all about what you aesthetically find pleasing. You could come out here and add another one that's tapering like this. Oh look, another point on her head. It's just there now. And that's because you chose it to be there. You thought it looked nice. Maybe we do that to the bangs. Following the curve, maybe one piece of her bang is like really long for some reason. And it tapers off, just like here. It does that little pinch. Wow, what? Why does it do that? I don't know, you felt like it. Let's have the bang, maybe the bangs, once again, following that curve. Maybe the bang has a really long piece over here too, or over here, following the curves. There it goes. Bangs. Wow, what the fuck is that? I don't know, but she has it. Hi, Sugi. I'm doing good. I have a lovely day. I am showing people how to draw hair. Or rather, I'm going over advice of different art or aspects of art that I wish I would have known a lot sooner, and hopefully this helps people. Yeah, it's Sugi. Hello, Kintsugi. But that is how I break down hair. And clothing works the same way. But just in a much more complex situation, because hair can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and clothes are even more crazy. Little yawn. But at the end of the day, as long as you remember the shape of the silhouette or the body you're putting it on, the easier it's going to be for you. So I suggest, now that we know how the face works and we know the different shapes of the face, we've gone over all of this stuff, from spheres to slicing into our spheres and stapling paper to our spheres and attaching a tube to it. All this stuff accumulating into a face, we can do with a body as well. Now, I don't know if I should overload you guys with that, because I don't know if this helped at all. But, I mean, think of this as a part 2, I suppose, of the art. There we go. Dylan's a great teacher and I love it here. Oh, I hope so. I hope you guys are learning something. Because, like I said, I'm just going over what I wish I'd known when I first started out, or like my first couple of years drawing. It would have helped me a lot better. So let's go look at some body shapes. Hopefully Twitch doesn't slap me. That's my main concern here. Let's see if I can't find anything that won't get me slapped here. Maybe this'll work. Because there's nothing nude here, but the pose is a little wonky. This works. I like this one, and I like this one. So I'm gonna grab a couple of bodies. Nothing crazy. But just enough to show off the shape and curve of the body's form. There we go. I realized my music was a little quiet. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to get slapped with the DMCA here. So I'm being pretty cautious with what I choose. That might not work. Okay, I think this could work for now. We're going to use this as a reference point. And I know it looks a little daunting now, but I promise it's not. It's just a person's body. Maybe I'll use this one too later, but I don't want to get slapped. Here, actually, I'm going to do this. I'll take a little picture of it. Twitch is okay with bathing suits, right? I'd like to learn how to draw, so I'm gonna rewatch the VOD from the beginning. Nice! You can stay for now, though, if you'd like to, Sugi. Also, hi, Kiwi Fluffs! I see you peeking. Also, for those wondering, the VOD is going to be on my YouTube. Everything goes on my YouTube because it's for archiving purposes. I don't want to lose any of my stuff. So let's just do this and hope Twitch doesn't scream at me. There we go. I think this looks pretty good. And it adds more because the arms aren't up or doing anything crazy. And it shows that 3/4 angle like I was doing. Music, please. Calm down, I'm talking. Hello? This is my show, not yours. But just like how I had this lady's face at a 3/4 angle, I have this at a 3/4 angle as well, just to show both perspectives. And we're going to go over the basic body shape to know how to drape clothes over it, since we have gone over how to drape hair over stuff. And once again, if I didn't draw a hairstyle that you want to do, just Google said art style and see how it falls over the face and falls over the head. And figure out why it's like that and why it's so voluminous or flat. Because wind versus water will definitely change the weight and the shape of your hair. Not to mention the curls versus like really coily hair versus afro hair. There's a lot you can do with hair. That was just like a basic course. And over time, I can do more complex tutorials, but this is just more of a general advice, basic 101, here's how to get started thing. For all of you who are wondering. Definitely use this VOD as a reference. I'm glad you guys can use it as a reference. So we're going to start off with the basic shapes of the body. Now I did break down the head in its various shapes. So here we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw the head. I have an itch. Just someone save me. There we go. I'm going to draw the head right here. Remember, it's a little circle. It's a little sphere that has that little curve right there. And it's that little piece of paper that we cut in half. But I'm not going to add the lines for my paper. We're just going to remember, hey, this was the paper, and I cut it. Remember that we cut it. Now, how the ever-living Sam Hill, James Dickens are we going to get this shit looking like a person with a full-ass body? Well, I do this fun little thing. Where you can figure out the proportions of the body, too. Now, remember the face's proportions. We're going to go back to that real quick. And for those of you turning in, here's the simple face, if we were looking at it from a direct angle. The eyes will always be halfway. The mouth will always be at the jaw, or 1/3 down the face. And the eyebrows will always come just above the eyes, with the nose somewhere in the middle here-ish. That's typically how I do faces. So the body does the same exact thing. The body has the exact same kind of proportions where you can reference it and figure it all out. So from here, we're going to do that. Here's my head to my waist ratio. Now, the way I like to do things... Let's see. The way the body works is typically when you draw the head, I'm just going to put a little circle down for that reference. And you follow the neck to the groin area. Typically, the neck to groin area is also just as long as the legs, about to the ankles, about here. You can add more to that leg length for your art style, which I personally do. I add the head. So we're going to do that. I'm going to keep with her proportions just for the sake of the video. But for now, we're going to go, okay, here's the head. Here's our paper that we cut. And there's that jaw. And then, just for good measure, I'm gonna slice off part of that head. Remember, we took the circle and we cut off the part of the head? Well, there it is. There's my sliced part of my head. Right here. Boom. Now, how do we do the rest of the body? If it's standing up straight, I want to make sure I have just a simple straight line to remind myself, hey, this is the pose I'm going for. Now, when it comes to the neck, we've already discussed. The neck is a tube. It's just a little tube that does this. It's like this, but the tube does something really fun, where it seems like it's curving just a little bit, like someone kind of pushed in these sides and they curve inward. So the neck does like something like this almost. This weird little curve thing. And it is always attached to your shoulders. And for shoulders, I typically go about the same length as the head. Because the head is about, for us, this head is about like that. So that's how big each of the shoulders are going to be for me, like that. And that is usually the proportions. See, for her, it works roughly the same way. See its length right here. She's turned a bit, so it doesn't register quite like that here. But for here, you can see it. Her head is here. It's about that shape, and her shoulders do the same thing. It's roughly the same space. Now, for me, I usually make my shoulders a little wider just because that's what I like to do, but I'm just going to follow her proportions. And when drawing the torso, remember, everything is a shape. For the torso, it does this strange little combo of shapes for me personally, because I like drawing the rib cage. And what the rib cage does is this fun little, like, box thing. It looks like a box, or maybe like a really wide cylinder, but not quite. So let's draw our square. Remember when I made my 3D square? There it is. So something kind of like that. And then I cut into the box right here. Kind of like I sliced off into it like that. And it's like, oh shit, there it goes. Sliced in. There's my box. But it's got like this weird half of a circle cut out. And that's how I typically do my rib cage. I'm gonna take a nap. Thanks for the good vibes, Desmond. Have a good stream. Thank you, Jacoback. I'm glad you were here for. Also, thank you for the thank you for the chocolate covered raisins before you leave. But yeah, I'm glad you could enjoy yourself. Hey, goodbye, Jacko. Wave, wave, wave. But this is how I typically do the rib cage area. I give it this little fun little shape where it has this space cut open. But that's just me. You don't have to do that. I've seen some people just do it by a circle, but I'm gonna go, chocolate raisins. Yes, I could probably actually snack on my chocolate raisins real quick. If I could open it. Hold on. Technical difficulties, and by technical, I mean snacknical. I want my raisins. Ow. Alright, num num num. Snamk. Now, attached to the neck is obviously going to be the shoulders. And for me, just like that little tube, I make another tube. I make the shoulders look like this little tube right here. Just like that, which is a circle and 2 lines. We all know what a tube looks like. We went over the shapes already. And that just helps me figure out where these things are going to be located. And then next, I attach this rectangle. I snap it in place, and I snap it kind of inside the tube, like right here, next to the circles here. Kind of like the tube is like clicked on, kind of like a doll. So I'm gonna snap my rectangle right in there, just click it in there. And remember, it's got that curve because I sliced into it. And then here's the edge of that rectangle. Boom, my rectangle. It's now clicked in. Now, I do this little thing too where I taper it in a little bit, so my rectangle has this sort of pulled in shape like that. Almost like it's a tooth. But you don't have to do that. It's just something I do to make the shape a little more like a rib cage, because if we're looking at a skeleton, the rib cage curls in just a bit at the end, kind of like a weird oval. And since I am proportionately conscious when I draw in my style, I think about how the rib cage would fit on my character. But that is not necessarily something you need to do. It's just something I personally do. For those of you who want to see a skeleton, gasp! But you see how the rib cage kind of comes in, and then it has that cut that I showed you, and it tapers inside right here, and that's why I do it. Once again, not necessary, but something I like to do. Speaking of, my rib cage looks pretty short, actually. Let's make it a bit longer. Now, how do I figure out how this rib cage length is? I don't quite know. So let's break this down from her. Whenever going from the neck to the groin area, it looks like the rib cage stops about halfway. Because see, here's the head, here's the groin, and here's the rib cage. So if we were to make the groin go to about here, we'll put the rib cage at about here. So we're gonna, since I curve it a little, I'm gonna curve it in, and then add that cut, and see, this is where my square, or my rectangle's point is. And there we go. And then after that, what I personally do, which is something you don't have to do again, once again, this is just what I do, but whatever helps you, helps you. Here, I'm gonna draw on her how I do it. There's my shoulders, and then there's, see, my rib cage right here, you can see it. What I like to do next, I'm gonna zoom in so you can see her better. What I like to do is find the point right here on the groin area and just add a triangle to it. I find that point and I just go boop and boop. Triangle point. It's pretty simple. And this is going to act as the point of the groin for the body in its entirety. And then I build the hips around it. Because I don't worry too much about the hips until I have that put down. So for her, as you can see, we're drawing a female, and I'm going to be drawing a female over here as well. Or rather, a cis female, specifically. We're drawing a cis girl. So yeah, I'm going to put that over here as well. I put my little triangle. This is just to kind of break down all the pieces that I use to show you what I'm doing, for all of you who are following along. I'm also going to size this up just a bit. Oops. Let's resize it just a bit. There we go. Now for the hips, it's simple. It's just another triangle, specifically half a cone, if we can remember what a cone looks like. Remember, it's the little circle with the triangle, because it's a circle coming to a point. What were to happen if we were to half that? Well, let's see. Here it is, and then we slice it in half. Well, there it is. It's half a cone. Okay. So we take half that cone, and we failed to move it because I'm a dude. There it is. And we apply the idea of that cone as hips. So here's the cone, right here. Here's where that point is, and we just come out and kind of just glue it to that side of this triangle. Same thing over here. We just glue it. There they are. There's my little cones. As you can see here, here's the cone. And this is where the underside of the cones would look like. My little cons! Yes, yes, yes. Is Con still here? I was talking about cones. Like ice cream cones. But we started thinking about you. Because you are a sweet baby fox. Fosk. Baby Fosk. But yeah, since cis female, we're giving her these little coned hips. We'll go over male versus female proportions at a later date, but for now we're just working on the default setting of female, I guess. Now, I personally want to fix this Because if you're looking at your piece of work and you realize something doesn't quite look right, you can always adjust it. For Trish, default female. Well, I mean, technically, we all do start off with an X chromosome, so we all have. We're all technically female before we're like inseminated, so. I'm just saying. That's why we all have nipples. Because that X chromosome. This has been Biology 102. This will be on the test as well. But, yeah, my hips got them in. And for the legs, like I said, this woman specifically, her proportions seem to go from. Let's do this. Let's go from ankles to groin. Her proportions seem to match up. It seems to get her jawline to her groin, which is what ankles to that is. So let's see what happens if I bring it up just a bit more. What song is this? Oh, it's Clocktown Market. That's how it sounds familiar. Female default. It's still funny to me. Popping out my chat real quick so I can keep my videos. There we go. Make sure everything's on the up and up. Female default. Alright, so I went from the back of her ankle to her groin area, and we can see that for her, it goes up to her eyes. So we're going to do the same thing for this. In order to figure out the length of your legs, which I've seen a lot of people struggle with, in order to find the length of your legs, you're going to go, for her specifically, it seems like you go to the eyes, right here, and then to the groin, and then go, okay, here's a straight line. And then just bring that down. Boom! That's where your feet are going to go. And that is how you do proportions. You basically cut the body in half. Now, some people have longer legs, some people have shorter. But for a good rule of thumb, especially for her, you want to go to about the eyes, apparently. It's me, I'm people. It me. Now, the way I do my legs, I start from the top of the head. Because that's just my style. I go top of head to groin, boom, and then I go down like this. But for her, you can see that's not quite working. And that's because I draw my torsos a little shorter. I draw my torso shorter and my head's a little bigger. So it makes it to where the legs will match in proportion with the body. Because I do something like this with my proportions. And this is what I mean by style. Because we can play around with the proportions here. I'm gonna grab her hand up a little bit. Let's pull her head down a bit. Let's shrink that just a little as well. Just a little more. And this is how I usually have my proportions on my characters. So you can see it's not quite realistic enough, but it's close. So you can see here's the ankles to the groin, and then the groin to about the top of the head. It's a lot more in proportion, and that's just because that's how I personally draw the body. But for her specifically, like I said, it seems to go to about the middle of the face, and then stops here, and then comes down to about the ankles. So that's what we're doing here. And in order to find the length of the legs, we're going to go through the middle of the line, which is where you find the knees. So about right here, about the middle. And then we will do the ankles. So I'm just going to hack off a bit right here to show where the ankles are going to be. And then, yeah, here and here, you can see it's roughly the same equal length. And that is how we get legs. So how do we shape these suckers? Well, clearly they're tubes, but they're a little more complex than tubes. They're specifically tubes that taper just a bit at the end, which is where the knees come in. So let's go back to our little shape over here. Hello, Mr. Shapes. So our legs do this fun little thing where, you know, here's our tube that we've been seeing so much of, but kind of like a cone, it tapers in just a bit, but it doesn't come to a point, not quite. It does this fun, interesting little thing, and that's our thigh. So this lady's thigh is going to come in like this, and it's going to taper, just like in the tube that I've shown you. Now remember, these proportions, it looks a little wonky. The art itself looks kind of jank, and that's because I'm breaking it down really slowly. And I'll show you how I do it in a faster way, like I did my face earlier over here. You can see how it looks a lot more proportionally sound than... Oh, whoa, I dropped my... my tablet slid away from me. But you see how this doesn't quite look so proportionally sound compared to this? And that's because I was able to just put it all together in one cohesive manner rather than breaking each part down step by step. And I will be doing that with the body next. But for now, I'm just showing you each piece of the puzzle here. And the leg is, like I said, it's this tapered tube. And the second part of the leg is two of these tapered tubes stuck together. Now, what do I mean by that? Here's my little tube. It's tapered, and it's kind of squiggy. It's kind of short. And the tube has been squished in here, just like how this has been squished in from the bottom. And then we have another one of these squished in from the bottom tubes, like this. It's been squished in right here. And then these two are put together. So like this. Here's my tube. Here's my little tapered at the top tube. And then here's my tapered at the bottom tube. Isn't that weird? Yeah, legs are weird. Fun fact, this is actually how a bunch of people 3D model stuff too, so you're kind of learning 3D modeling while we're at it. Because if you're good at art, or if you understand how art is processed, you already have a leg up in the 3D modeling department. Or if you know 3D modeling really well, you already have a leg up in the art department. Because it's, like I said, it's all about registering 3D shapes to a 2D canvas. And now we will draw her other leg. We taper that tube. Taper the tube. Taper the tube. Tube tapered. And for feet, remember that slope I did with the nose? Feet are pretty similar to that. Feet are also slopes. Just on their side. So remember with the nose, we had our slope that did this. Let's lay that down. Let's lay our little triangle down. Have a nap. Have a good little nap, little triangle. And there it is. There's your foot. It's your nose, but on your side. That sounds really weird and without context, but listen. Here we go. Here's our foot. Oh, look. It's sleeping. It's laying down for a nap. Same thing here. Oh. It's laying down for a nap. There's her feet. Holy crap, we got feet. Look at her feet. Oh, hold on. Ah, no, I'm not drawing feet. Listen. Hoda slid in time for the feet. I summoned him with feety picks. But now applying that to this lady, we can get rid of this because we know that the legs are roughly the length of that. Yes. Now listen, it's fine. I can explain. People need to know how to draw feet. There needs to be more foot art in the world. Listen. It's fine. No, no, let me have my feet. Please. Please, feet. But, breaking down everything that I have shown you up until this point, we will go over the points on her. Don't clip it! Please. I mean, you're not wrong. I'm not in defeat. But we're going to take our shapes that I've showed you here and we're going to apply it to this lady. So like I said, it's a tube that tapers at the end just a bit. And then the second part of her leg is a tube that tapers at the top. And then the second part is another tube that tapers at the end. Same thing with this leg. Boop. And it tapers. Then it comes out. And then it comes in. Now it doesn't look exactly right in the front. And I will show that. No! No! I've been exposed. No, I've been exposed. Don't do this to me. This music really is. Can't say anything openly said I was a masochist when we were playing Hollow Knight. It's true. If only I had clipped that. But, without getting too weird about it, we got her legs, and now we do the feet. Don't... We draw the feet. And see, it's just a slope. And a slope. Boop. Just like I got here. Her feet are a little shorter and squatter than the ones I drew, but that's okay. Like I said, no proportions are completely the same. My music stopped. Oh no. Let's get more music going. Do we want to listen to Hollow Knight music? I kind of want to listen to Hollow Knight music for the rest of this. And then again, I could just listen to more Legend of Zelda. And I was streaming, getting rated every time I was working on the feet. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. This was just your revenge on the universe. Let's listen to some more music from Legend of Zelda. Because Legend of Zelda, my beloved. Legend of Zelda, affectionate. Pretty music. Let's turn it down just a bit so it's not blasting you guys out. There we go. But yeah, this is basically the basis of how I do body shape and proportion. There are a few nuances to all of this, as there is with everything. Like I said with the face, there are little details that you have to go in and remember as well, but this is a good basis that I use personally for when drawing a good proportioned body. Now remember, you can... Actually, the head looks pretty small. Let me do this. Let me get her head a little bigger. That looks much better. And you can do that. You can always go in and go, that looks not proportioned right. But this is a good basis. And just like with every shape, there are curves and lines of perspective that you will find on the body. We know the face is curves, but what about the chest? Well, obviously the chest does this little front curve, as we see for her. She has this curve going about her body. Just like with here, there's going to be a curve. And because of that dip in the rib cage, there's going to be a little bloop, a little tiny dip right here, right at the ribs. But we're not completely flat after that, are we? We have curves on our stomach as well. Specifically, females, cis females, have this really interesting, like, really squishy donut muscle that I keep in mind when drawing. So, like, think of a donut. Like, here's my circle. And we all know what a donut looks like. You know, a donut's this. But what happened if we turned it and squished it real bad? Well, here's my donut, but let's squishy it. Squish it real good. There we go. Now what is it? It's like a weird little squishy thing. I don't know. And then we turn it on its side. We have the little squishy right here. Oh, look. The donut. So they have this, like, little muscle that does the exact same thing. It's like this squishy donut. So this actually curves like this a bit, and then comes into the belly button, so it curves out and then in to curve around this donut shape right here, because remember, this is a circle, it's curvy. This is going to curve right here, all over the donut a bit, and then it dips in to that little spot where the belly button is, and then it curves again, because remember, this is a donut. And then it comes down to a more of a point here. And that's the basic shape of the body. Curves in on the belly button. It curves in on the ribs. Oof. Yeah. And that is how we get that basic curve of the shape. Because remember, everything has a curve. Same thing over here on these little cones. Remember, cones are curves. And here is her cone on her hip that we see here. And coming on that point, we have these curves. Same thing over here. Here's that curve. Here's those, the half that cone, and it curves in. The legs do the same thing. We follow the curves of the body, and we figure out where these little perspective lines are going to go. I have been rated 3 times while talking about whips, and the other times monster fucking. Nice! Rise up, please! 2 of the 3 had 10 plus people. Nice! Now people get to know what you're into right away! They get to know if they have to stay or go or not. That's beautiful. I think I've mentioned something about monster fucking on... I kept going. Nice. Hey, you're a man of conviction, okay? You're a man of conviction and class, and you deserve to keep going about whips and monster fucking, okay? You're allowed. We stand, okay? Oh, right. Finally, we go to the arms. I've seen so many people struggling. Come on. Come here, you. Where are you? There you are. I've seen so many people struggle to draw arms. A degenerate. It's okay. We appreciate degenerates in this household. But yeah, I have seen people crying and struggling over arms and especially hands. Hands and feet seem to be like the most difficult fucker thing. Monster fucking is pretty based. I agree. Agreed. Ugh. But, as we can see here, her little arms, they're also tubes. They're just tubes. Arms and legs are just tubes. But how do we know how long to make the arms? We figured out the legs, it's half the body, more or less. Hands, derogatory. But, we figured out how to do legs. We know how to make that length. How do we do the arm length? That's hard. Not necessarily. I have learned a fun little rule. Arm length will always do this little thing where it is half of itself, just like with legs. It's half of itself, not including the shoulders, of course. If we were to lump out the shoulders a bit, and the elbow, we'd see that it is two halves of the same thing. And the elbow will always reach the midpoint of your body. Neuron activated. So with this arm, we're gonna go, okay, we're gonna make a tube, just like over here. It's a tube with a slight taper at the end here. It tapers in just a bit, like that. So we're gonna draw the arm, and we're gonna have it taper in just a bit. We're gonna bring it out. And we're gonna put it at that midpoint of the waist, just like here. And then we're gonna have it come down. And remember, arms and legs, they're not completely straight when it comes to your elbows and your knees bending. Some people will have their knees bent a bit or their elbows bent a bit, especially if your arm's just resting. Your elbow's not going to necessarily just lock up and be straight as an arrow. Your arm's not going to do that. That's how you hurt yourself. When your arm is resting, your elbow's always going to just bend out just a little bit. So these things are going to be sticking out just a tiny bit. But yeah, just like with your legs, you have the tapered in, like this, and then you have the one that tapers out a little bit, and then it tapers back in, and then these are attached. Just like here. Here, and then you have that bump here, and then it goes to here. And that little bump is right here. It's a lot more subtle, especially in her arm, but it is there, and it's just a little pack of muscle. And then the hand comes to about where your hips start. You see here how, right here, just above that groin area where her hips are really starting to pick up. That's where the hand goes. At about hip level. Now we're just going to draw a little square for the hand for now. Just like how we did little triangles for the feet, we're just going to add little squares for the hands for now, because I plan on going in depth on how I do hands and feet later. For now, I'm just showing basic shapes for the body itself. And then we can come in back here. Now remember, we are big, strong, smart adults, and we're so sexy and capable. So we know that back here, there is a shoulder, and then there is an arm back here, but we can't see it. But that's okay. See, we can't see it over here, but we know it's there. We're not dumb. We're not two. We have object permanence. We know it's there. So we're going to draw that tube again, and again, we're going to close it right at the halfway point, and then we're going to bring the arm out, because once again, the elbow is bent that way, just like how we did it here. And then I'm just going to draw a little square to show where the hand is gonna go. And boom, there's our basic proportions with all of these shapes needed to make a body. Now, like I said, you can use other shapes or other amalgamations of shapes in order to help your brain process it better. This is not a foolproof plan. This is just how I personally do it and how I figure out where everything is proportioned. There are other ways. This is just the easiest for me. Ugh, I'm trying to hide my yawning. I'm trying not to up that counter. There we go. So now that I have that done, I can do what I did here. See how I drew the face and then I redid it to better fit a faster pace. I'm going to do that here now. So just watch or follow along as best as you can. And I'm going to draw my own female body shape. So scooching on over here and remembering all the shapes that I've shown you. Let's scoot everything a bit out of the way here. And we can scoot the body over here so we can see everything. I'm going to draw it in the middle here. I'm also going to save. Remember, save often. But using all these shapes and using this basic body template that I have loaded up, I'm going to draw my own. So, remembering back to drawing my head, I'm going to draw my little circle. And then I'm going to draw my 3/4 line, and I'm going to remember, oh yeah, my paper is here that I cut and sliced and diced. And I also sliced into the head a bit, so there we go. I'm not going to worry about face, though, because I'm just building up the full body. I'm not worrying about a portrait. And plus, we've already covered the hair and all that good stuff. There we go. So now I'm going to work down the body, just like how I did here, but me working at a quicker pace to show how I typically do it. So I'm going to make the head just a bit bigger, scoot it up, just to help myself a little bit. We're going to come in with the neckline. I also typically like to add, like I said, that line there, and I curve it a bit. I do like this, you know how you make an S, like this, or maybe like a backwards S? I like to do a very open S, like this. And I start from the head, and I curve the S. Just a very simple curve to kind of remind myself of where everything is and the flow that this body is going to go in. Because no one stands exactly straight. That'd be boring. Even this body has this slight curve to it. And you see how she also has this very slight curve to her when she's standing. The chest is up, and the body is now back. And that is how you keep yourself balanced. So I like to keep this little curve in there just for that tell for my eyes. And then I go, okay, I'm gonna work it all down. Here's my tube for my neck. That's where the opening is right here. Because remember, that tube does that weird pinchy thing in the middle. And I'm gonna add my shoulders. Here's my simple line for my shoulders. Cool, cool, cool. I'm gonna add my rib cage. And remember, the rib cage goes roughly halfway down the body. So I'm gonna remember it goes to about here. And I'm gonna taper it in, because that's how I personally do it. I taper in my rib cage. Gonna add that line just for me to remember that curve. And then we're just gonna bloop, add my triangle. Now I'm curving the line here just a bit because remember, everything is curling in like this, so that line is going to follow that flow. See how she has that flow? My line is going to follow it. It's like bending with her and wrapping under her. So that's what's going to happen with this character. And now I find my hips. I go, okay, my hips are going to roughly drop a bit below the waist, or a bit below their rib cage, as you can see from her. Here's the ribs. Oops, it's not doing it. Here's the rib cage. and then immediate hip drop. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go, okay, here's the hips. Now the way I like to do... I'm not cool, I promise. You're cool, Captain. I'm just like showing how I do stuff. Wait. But, I like... Let's see, I'm going to give her some big hips. Now, I did show that her leg is technically a half a cone. Like this. But my brain processes it a bit better if I add this little curve, like I lift it. That's just for me. And I do the same thing here. I lift the hips just a bit. Just to help myself. So, it's like I picked up the cone and I pushed it into the hips a bit, like this. And now the cones are farther up into the body. But that's just how I do it. You don't have to. It's just how I do it. And then I go, okay. I want to figure out my leg length, so I'm going to come on here. I'm going to do the head, and I'm going to line it up. To about here. Because remember, I go from about the top of the head to the bottom of the groin. While it seems like it's more proportionally sound to do it from the eyes or the nose to the groin instead, but it's whatever you want to do. I just like adding longer legs to my characters. And there is nothing wrong with that. And then I do my tubes. Add my tube for my girl. Well, first I figure out the length of my tube. There we go. And then we add her leg. And now for the knee, I typically just do this little diamond for my brain to go, that's the knee, that's where that's gonna be. Because the knee, think of it as like a little, like, cut out lemon or diamond. Let me try again. You're so poggers, Desmond. God damn it, Reza. I'm not poggers. But I take like this little diamond shape. Like, think of something like this, where it's like a diamond. Something like that. Like, here's the side and here's the front. I do something like that. I think of it as like a little diamond sticking out of their leg. So I add just the simplest little diamond shape. And then I remember remember it tapers in, and then it tapers out, and then tapers in again here. See here. It connects. I'll do that just so people can see. And then we add our footsies. But first, let's add her other leg. And then we add the knee. Remember, it's like that diamond sticking out. And then it tapers out like this and tapers in. And then there's her leg. And then we add the feet. Now, I personally don't add the little lift right here. My brain just goes, okay, this equal foot. But my brain knows that's there. I just don't draw it. See, like, it is still technically there, as you can see. But I don't register it in when I draw it because I personally don't need it. I am going to make her neck and head a bit bigger, though, because it was looking a little small on my end. There we go. There she is. There's my girl. Like I said, you can adjust stuff. If stuff looks a little awkward, like for me, man, I want to make her legs actually a little bit shorter. They look a little weird for me on my end. There we go. That looks very lovely, very proportioned. And then for the arms, we're going to do a tube. And it comes to about here. So, tube at about that point. And then another tube at about the hip point. And then I'm just going to add a little square for her hand. And then we'll do it again over here. Tube. And then another little tube sticking out. And then we'll just do a little hand square thing for now. And that is how I do it when I break it down and put it all together in one cohesive drawing instead of like going bit by bit with the shapes. But there she is. That is the basic shapes all put together very quickly. And remembering with my big brain, our big brains, we all have them. Remembering with my head, this is what the shapes I'm going for. And like I said, that just comes with practice. Practicing these shapes, specifically. Because like I said, it's annoying to hear, oh, you just have to practice every day. And what do I practice? This is what you practice. You practice these shapes and putting them together to figure out how to make other things. So yes, practice is good for you, but you need to know what to practice. But there we go. There's my girl. There's my shape. There's my homie. And after a while of just crunching down these shapes like this, you'll be able to do this too. And your eyes will get better at seeing the little problems and seeing why this might be a little disproportionate. Why does this head look weird? Let's try making it bigger or smaller. Oh, that looks better. It's all about eyeing it and figuring out what it looks good for aesthetically. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the clamps. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're clapping for me, Himiko. Meh. But this has been quite the fulfilling journey. I showed you how to make a face. Oh, I showed you first how to do the different shapes and how to put them into 3D. I showed you guys how I hack around with the face, the pieces I put on it to actually make it work and cohesive. And then I drew a quick sketch of that, and I showed you how I layered hair on top of it. And this is just basic of the basics. Oh, and I also showed you how I did my bodies. And like I said, this is basic 101, how do the thing. This there is going to be more. I'm going to break it down in a much more cohesive understanding. No, I'm not talented. Well, no. When I say talent, I say my talent comes from the ability to sit down and do this for literally 7 hours a day if I want. I could draw from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed because I'm somewhat cracked of an individual. The skill comes from just the years of practice. The reason it looks nice is because I did it. I do the thing and I learn the shapes. And you guys can too. You have the shapes here with you. And next week, I can do it. This music's so triumphant. Next week, I can do more of this. I can hone in on certain pieces of the body or the face that I know people have the most trouble with. Like, I know eyes are pretty difficult. We can kind of like zoom in, if that makes sense. For now, this was just basic shapes. Next week, I can zoom in on like eye detail, nose, mouth detail, and then hands and feet. Because hands and feet are very fucking hard to draw. If you're trying to like get in all the little details. And those are dumb. And also just how to make your body look like a body instead of shapes. Because right now, yeah, it is just a bunch of shapes. But there's nothing wrong with that. It still looks like a body. It still looks like a person. But how do we get it from that to like an actual person? And we will be covering all of that next week. It is a bit early to be closing up, but I think I'm going to call it here. Because I need to get some food, and I need to get some water. I kind of ran out of water pretty early in the stream, and it made me very everything is just shapes. Basically, that was the basis of the tutorial. Literally everything you have on your body, and everything you own, and everything in the world is just an accumulation of 3D objects. And art is learning how to translate those 3D objects onto a 2D space. That's it. Oh, I also did cover basis of art style and how to break down, how to make your own art style, technically. I could cover that in more detail later, I guess, if people really want it. But I think I've said a good amount of it just in general. But yeah, there we go. There's our bodies. And I'm going to call it for now. Because I have talked a lot. And it was such a blast. Life is just a box of shapes. Yeah. It's so true. You're true as fuck, Captain. But we're gonna hoppy on over here. And I'm going to rest my brain. I'm also going to do this. Hee 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 hee. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. Shh, don't worry, I'm loading in. Okay, there we go. Ha ha ha. I have my eyes. But yeah, after pointing out all that shape stuff, now you could probably look at me, my model, my hair, my necklace, and you can see all the shapes. You can see my necklace is just a circle that wraps around a tube, because my neck is a tube. Oh no, my immersion! Sorry guys, my camera lagged. Listen. But you can see, like, my bow. It's also just a flattened out pair of tubes with two ribbons sticking out from underneath. Like, it's really interesting. Once you get to know these, like, 4 to 5 easy 3D shapes, you see them everywhere. And then you can go, okay, I know how to cut everything out and draw it properly. And that's all I do. That's all artists do. And that's why I said art is equal parts creative and equal parts technical, because it is. It is technical. You have to have a good understanding of this 3D environment in order to make a good technical rendition of it. But I've yammered on about that enough for now. I'm gonna rest my brain on that front. Music is blasting me just a bit. It's very pretty music, though. No. Okay, we can hug. We can hug, Ryza. Hug. I like how I turn down the music and then it immediately starts getting quiet. Thank you. Thank you. That's so lovely. But yeah, we can break down more stuff later into more complex shapes. We can do that next, I want to say next Monday, because Tuesday I'm going to be playing more Hollow Knight. Now, since I beat, kind of, quote-unquote, beat, super interesting and helpful. I'm glad, Himiko. I'm glad I could help. I've been wanting to actually do art tutorials since before I started streaming. And originally I was just going to stream purely to share art tutorials and art advice. But then I realized, wait, I want a VTube, and that sounds really fun. What if I just do art tutorials on that later? And here we are. But, when Twitch eventually does remove it, it will be on my YouTube, so you don't have to worry about, hunting for it. I may actually put just art tutorials in a playlist so that, people can just grind that out if they want. But I'm going to call that. Because my brain, meh. And yeah, Tuesday, Hollow Knight, because I technically beat Monster Hunter Rise, and I'm moving that to Friday, because it's going to be nothing but high-rank hub quests from here on out. And I'm going to be playing with Leon, because hub quests is fucking hard. And I've already proved myself. I've beaten Monster Hunter Rise as low rank all by myself, and I am very proud of that. I am very proud of myself for doing that, because for the longest time I thought I was just getting carried by Leon. Even though he assured me he was not carrying me, I didn't believe him until now, and now I feel more confident in playing that game. Also, it just helped me learn the game without, you know, having to pedal behind him all the time. So yeah, Monster Hunter on Fridays, Hollow Knight on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because that's going to be my main focus game until I beat it completely. And then we can vote on another game, because it was a voted for and won game on my Twitter. And of course on Wednesdays we're going to world build. I'm never going to stop my world building. Not until I'm dead. Or until I've covered literally every little thing. But even then, you can world build as much as you want, because if I finish creating a race from scratch, guess what? I can always create another race from scratch. And then I can cover other aspects of race creation and culture creation, and listen, it's fine. But that is going to be the schedule for the week. For probably this week and next week as well. Tutorials on Monday, Hollow Knight on Tuesday, World Building Wednesday, Hollow Knight Thursday, and Monster Hunter Friday. I'll try and get an actual, like, schedule image up on my Twitter, but I didn't do that last week, so whoops. And I will see you all later. Let's go find someone to raid. Who do we drop in on? I see 2 people I could drop in on. I did drop on Blue last time, and they're doing art too. Do you guys want to keep seeing more pretty art from cute little VTuber Catboy? Or do we want to watch some... World Building Shoots will help me a lot with my comic and my characters. I'm so glad they're helping. I'm actually extremely glad they're helping, because I absolutely love world building. Arguably, I do more world building than I actually do writing stories for the worlds. Tee-hee. I'm very Tolkien when it comes to that. I'm like, ooh, I can add languages. Oh my god, I can add another species of elf. Oh my god. And then I just keep going, and I'm like, wait, they need actual, like, lore and history and stories, right? History, sure, but lore and stories, I'm not so sure anymore. And then I just get crazy with it. Alright, so we're... It's Chef's Kiss. Thank you, I'm so glad it helps. More! What was that gif? The one with, Star Wars. More! More! I love it. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna drop in on Blue. I've been seeing what they're doing. And I'm gonna plop in on a cute cat boy. So, this is my raid for now. And tomorrow, I'm going to have actual emotes. So, people who are following me and people who are subbing me can actually use my emotes tomorrow. Because today, everything went through. It all worked. It's all correct. I am totally not already in Blue Stream. Ryza. I'm looking for you there, buddy. But yeah, everybody copy that. I know, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for my own emotes. But we'll copy all of that, and we're gonna head over there. And I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully with emotes, for some lovely little Hollow Knight.